It wouldn't be the week before Christmas without doing, I guess this is part 20 with Larry, the contractor guy. Well, we will definitely halt it after this, and we'll get back together after the first. And I'm thinking to myself, 20 parts we've done. That's a half a year. Holy mackerel. But I think this also highlights the fact that no matter how long you do this, it'll always be pertinent because here we go again. If it isn't the truth about, all the major characters and all the basic food groups are involved in what's going on right now. Whether it's real or it's theater, it's happening right before us. So, thanks for coming back again. But I know you saw the most recent stuff that we got in emails.
Yeah.
And there's a theme here, but I wonder sometimes too if that's not also being worked as it has been in times past to make Germany the bad guy. From an economic standpoint, it's almost like, well, excuse me for making money,
Yeah, well, I think the thing is that Germany is just a tool in the hands of the aristocracy of Europe, and has been for quite a while, and also the Vatican. But we've kind of been through that. It's not really a German thing. It's going to be a European thing. It won't be German per se. It'll be a European Union with different language groups.
Well, and this for another day, but some of the stuff we get comes from a certain website that would indicate, that Germany's going to be another Reich or something like that. I don't know about that. I think pretty much, though, that there's no doubt that something is afoot. All this trouble in Europe and all this, with the finances and such, just wasn't happening by itself.
No.
To push it all on Germany, not that, I'm an apologist for the Reich or anything like that, but I think in a way that's almost kind of like, fanning the flames for some kind of like anti-German sentiment, which might not necessarily be the case. Also, Liam has sent us stuff that, you can talk about the EU dissolving, you can talk about Britain taking their, bat and ball and going someplace else. But like he also said, they're involved in so many treaties, as all the nations there, plus the ones that want to get in. I don't think the EU is dissolving whatsoever. And, of course, that would fit our schema also, and I must admit we would lean that way.
No, the EU is not going away at all.
No, neither. That's what I think, right.
Else.
Right.
Even more sinister, I should say. I don't necessarily think the EU is particularly sinister at this point, but it will morph into something that is.
Yeah, I think anything that's going to come down the pike, too. This is an ongoing soap opera over there. It's okay. No, it's not okay. They're all right. No, they're not all right. I hear that the stock market's going to be great one morning. Then they have 3 days of losses, and it's like, it's because of the downgrading of their bonds and all. Look, please spare me. We'll be here for another year after the next election, and then we're going to see what's going to happen in 2013. At least that's what I think. But to me, this is a script that's going to get played out, and it's not without a reason and an objective, which is not just to send us back to the way things were. So We'll see. All right, sorry for all that. And were you taking us on this magical mystery tour?
Well, we've during the course of this series, we banged on the American contingency of the people that brought Nazism into the world. They brought the Third Reich in, and we talked a great deal about that, especially the Bush and Harriman axis. And we talked about Fords, and we talked about General Motors and some of the other American corporate entities that were involved. But we haven't talked much about the British. And since, as I understand it, you have a fairly large British audience out there, I thought they might like to know about their own contribution to the Nazi cause and the Nazi roots of the House of Windsor. And that's what I was going to talk about today. In particular, his royal virus, Prince Philip.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about the usurpation of the throne by the Windsors, or is that for another epoch?
I think we can talk about that some other time, okay. But I want to talk about Prince Philip, and as I like to call him, his royal virus.
All right.
The reason being that he made a statement once, and to a German paper in August of 1988, in the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation. Well, wasn't that just very nice and genocidal of him?
There you go.
What a guy. What a guy. At any rate, I was going to read from an article called The Nazi Roots of the House of Windsor by Scott Thompson. It's printed in a magazine, like a website, called American Almanac. And he starts off, one of the biggest public relations hoaxes ever perpetrated by the British Crown is that King Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne in 1938 due to his support for the Nazis, was a black sheep, an aberration in an otherwise unblemished Windsor line. Nothing could be further from the truth. The British monarchy and the City of London's leading crown bankers enthusiastically backed Hitler and the Nazis, bankrolled the Führer's election, and did everything possible to build a Nazi war machine for Britain's planned geopolitical war between Germany and Russia. Support for Nazi-style genocide has always been at the heart of the House of Windsor policy, and long after the abdication of Edward VIII, the Merry Windsors maintained their direct Nazi links. So when Prince Philip, co-founder with Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, another Nazi, of the World Wildlife Fund, tells an interviewer that he hopes to be reincarnated as a deadly virus to help solve the population problem, he's just doing what comes naturally for any scion of the Anglo-Dutch oligarchy. To get beyond the soap opera stuff and truly understand the Windsors today, it is useful to start with Prince Philip. Not only was he trained in the Hitler Youth curriculum, but his German brothers-in-law, with whom he lived, all became high-ranking figures in the Nazi Party. Before his family was forced into exile, Prince Philip had been in line of succession to the Greek throne. Established after a British-run coup against the son of King Ludwig of Bavaria, who became King Otto I of the Hellenes. Having dispatched King Otto in 1862, London ran a talent search for a successor, which resulted in the selection of Prince William, the son of the designated heir and nephew to the Danish Crown Prince Christian. In 1862, Prince William of the Danes was installed as King George I of Greece and married a granddaughter of Tsar Nicholas I in 1866. Prince Philip is a grandson of Queen Victoria, and he's related to most of the current and former crowned heads of Europe, including 7 czars. The marriages of Prince Philip's sisters definitely strengthened German aristocratic ties. During 1931 and 32, Philip's 4 older sisters married as follows: Margarita to a Czech Austrian prince named Gottfried von Hohenlohe-Langenberg, that's easy for me to say, a great-grandson of England's Queen Victoria. Theodora to Berthold, the Margrave of Baden. I don't know what a Margrave is, but I know it's some kind of a title. Cecilia to George Donatus, Grand Duke of Hesse by the Rhine, also a great-grandson of Queen Victoria. And Sophie to Prince Christoph of Hesse. 3 of Philip's brothers-in-law were part of a group of German aristocrats who were Anglophile and pro-Nazi at the same time, and who would remain a subversive force in Germany to this day. Then it says, enter Prince Bernhard. His Royal Highness Prince Bernhard, royal consort to Queen Juliana of the Netherlands and father of the current Queen Beatrix, co-founded and became the first head of the World Wildlife Fund, now the Worldwide Fund for Nature, in October 1961. When the Lockheed scandal forced Prince Bernhard to resign from his most important public functions in 1971, he was replaced by Prince Philip. Prince Bernhard, like Prince Philip, whom he recruited to the eco-fascist cause, had strong roots in the Nazi movement. In fact, the whole House of Orange did. Queen Wilhelmina, mother of the future Queen Juliana, married a right-wing playboy who begged for money for Hitler. Juliana married an SS man, Prince Bernhard, and Queen Juliana's daughter, Beatrix, married a former member of the Hitler Youth. Prince Bernhard first became interested in the Nazis in 1934 during his last year of study at the University of Berlin. He was recruited by a member of the Nazi intelligence services, but first worked openly in the motorized SS. Bernhard went to Paris to work for the firm I.G. Farben, which pioneered Nazi economics. Minister Hjalmar Schacht's slave labor camp system, by building concentration camps to convert coal into synthetic gasoline and rubber. That's that concept of conversion of coal into synthetic gasoline, which we've talked about quite a bit. Bernhard's role was to conduct espionage on behalf of the SS. According to April 5, 1976 issue of Newsweek, this role, as a part of a special SS intelligence unit in IG Farben industry, had been revealed in testimony at the Nuremberg trials. When Bernhard left the SS to marry the future Queen Juliana, he signed his letter of resignation to Adolf Hitler, Heil Hitler. That's nice of him. William Hoffman writes in his book, Queen Juliana, tensions over the marriage were not cooled when Adolf Hitler forwarded his own congratulatory message. The newspaper Het Volk editorialized, it would be better if the future queen had found a consort in some democratic country rather than in the Third Reich. Well, I think that's kind of understating it. This is the man who recruited Prince Philip to eco-fascism, but Prince Philip's Nazi roots had been laid much earlier. Through the influence of his sister Theodora, young Philip was sent to the German school near Lake Constantine that had been founded by Berthold's father, Max von Baden, working through his longtime personal secretary, Kurt Hahn. During World War I, Prince Max von Baden had been chancellor, while the Oxford-trained Hahn first served as head of the Berlin Foreign Ministry's intelligence desk, then as a special advisor to Prince Max in the Versailles Treaty negotiation. Von Baden and Hahn set up a school in a wing of the Schloss Salem, employing a combination of monasticism and the Nazi Strength Through Joy program. At first, in support of the Nazis, Hahn, who was part Jewish, soon got into trouble with the SS and came to support the more centrist elements of the Nazi Party. What Hahn really had become is what Henry Kissinger's friend Michael Ledeen had termed a universal fascist, in the sense of Vladimir Jabotinsky, Count Caligari, and the Strasser brothers, and other fascists whom the hardcore Nazis would have no dealings with. Although Hahn's powerful connections permitted him to escape the concentration camps, he was forced to leave the school he founded in Germany before Philip's arrival there and establish a new school in Scotland called Gordonstone. It would play a major role in rearing all the male children of Queen Elizabeth II and Philip. When Philip arrived at Hahn's school in Schloss Salem, it was in control of the Hitler Youth and the Nazi Party, and the curriculum had become Nazi race science. Hahn became an advisor to the Foreign Office in London, urging policies of appeasement based upon appeals to the centrist Nazis. The husband of Philip's sister, Sophie, Prince Christoph, was embraced by the Nazis, who saw him as a channel to the appeasement faction in Britain, epitomized by King Edward VIII. Joining the Nazi Party in 1933, by 1935, Prince Christoph was chief of the Forschungsamt, Directorate of Scientific Research, a special intelligence operation run by Hermann Goering, and it was also the Standardatenführer, colonel of the SS, on Heinrich Himmler's personal staff. Well, that's pretty good. He's on Himmler's personal staff and Prince Philip's brother-in-law. The eldest of Prince Christoph and Sophie's children was named Karl Adolf after Hitler. Well, that's kind of nice, too. Later, Prince Philip would promote his education. Prince Christoph's brother, Philip of Hesse, married a daughter of the King of Italy and became the official liaison between the Nazi and fascist regimes. 4 years later, after Prince Philip left Schloss Salem to attend Gordonstone Academy in Scotland on November 16, 1937, Philip learned that his sister Cecilia and her husband George Donatus, hereditary Grand Duke of Hesse by the Rhine, had crashed in one of Goering's Junker aircraft on a trip to London for George's brother's wedding. According to the British magazine Private Eye, the funeral became a gathering point for leading Nazis and their appeasers. Prince Philip himself developed secretive ties with King Edward VIII, continuing after Edward was deposed in 1938. In fact, one of the central figures in the 1930s Nazi-British back channel was Philip's uncle and sponsor, Lord Mountbatten, originally in Battenberg, a branch of the House of Hesse. Until he was forced to abdicate, King Edward VIII enjoyed the full backing of Dickie Mountbatten. Although through much of World War II, secret channels of communication were maintained between the British royal family and their pro-Hitler cousins in Germany by Lord Mountbatten, through his sister Louise, who was crown princess of pro-Nazi Sweden. Louise was Prince Philip's aunt. Although Buckingham Palace rumor mill has tried to depict this wartime collaboration with the enemy as mere family correspondence, the channel apparently included messages from Prince Philip's secret ally, the Duke of Windsor, the former Edward VIII. On November 20th, 1995, the Washington Times reported, based on recently discovered Portuguese Secret Service files, first published in the London Observer, that the Duke of Windsor had been in close collaboration with the Nazis in Spain and Portugal to foment a revolution in wartime Britain that would topple the Churchill government, depose his brother King George VI, and allow him to regain the throne with Queen Wallis Simpson, the American divorcee, for whom he abdicated the throne at his side. And goes on to talk about comments made by Nicholas Franco, who was the brother of fascist General Francisco Franco. Ambassador Franco told the Portuguese diplomat, the Duke of Windsor, free from the responsibilities of the war, in disagreement with English politicians, could be the man to put at the head of the empire. And if he had, it's pretty much a certain bet that the British never would have gone to war with the Nazis, or they would have stopped the war once he became king. I want to go on and just talk about some of the comments. These are in Prince Philip's own words. From that same website, Propaganda Matrix, printed in American Almanac. Just some of his quotes. Prince Philip, in his foreword to If I Were an Animal in the United Kingdom, Robert Clark Limited, 1986, I just wonder what it would be like to be reincarnated in an animal whose species have been so reduced in numbers that it was in danger of extinction. What would be its feelings toward the human species, whose population explosion had denied it somewhere to exist? I must confess that I'm tempted to ask for reincarnation as a particularly deadly virus. Press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. on the occasion of the Caring for Creation. This is Prince Philip again, in 1990. It is now apparent that the ecological pragmatism of the so-called pagan religions, such as that of the American Indians, the Polynesians, and the Australian Aborigines, was a great deal more realistic in terms of conservation ethics than the more intellectual monotheistic philosophies of the revealed religions. And again in Canada in 1983, for example, the World Health Organization project designed to eradicate malaria from Sri Lanka in the post-war years achieved its purpose. But the problem today is that Sri Lanka must feed 3 times as many mouths, find 3 times as many jobs, provide 3 times the housing, energy, schools, hospitals, and land for settlement in order to maintain the same standards. Little wonder the natural environment and wildlife in Sri Lanka has suffered. The fact is, the best-intentioned aid programs are at least partially responsible for the problems. In other words, just let them die of malaria, because otherwise there'll be too many people, and he and his wife won't have any place to ride their horses.
I don't think they're doing much horse riding these days. I think they probably mate with them, but... I mean, look at Charles.
You already did.
I mean, look at Charles. I mean, come on. You kidding me? Woo!
Yeah, looking at Prince Charles, that's one ugly dude. I mean, they didn't do anything but improve the stock of that group with Lady Diana. I know she had some problems, but golly, really an attractive lady compared to anybody I'd ever seen in that family.
Well, there's a reason why he bred with her rather than Camellia.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I mean, Charles is a dude. I mean, the guy's done some stuff, and I'm sure he can handle himself. But, Christmas, I mean, what are you thinking about? And, Philip never says anything. I mean, you never hear him say anything. I mean, all through these years, he just sits there and smiles. Maybe I would, too, if I married Liz. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she didn't even have a good day. I mean,
Well, this article has a ton of quotes from him, and basically it's what some people call the fascist ecological movement, which is basically just genocide. Get rid of the human beings who are pain. They're causing a problem, and let's eliminate all this problem on the planet. The whole Georgia Guidestones attitude we've talked quite a bit about. genocide and the attitude of the elites.
But that stuff was coming straight out of H.G. Wells' mouth.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of the century.
Sure.
I just said it straight out. Him and not so much. Well, I mean, Galton was there too, and all those other guys. But I mean, Wells, was just unabashed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, that's always been part and parcel of. I hate to say it, but the Brit higher class. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, when I had that guy on, the author Daniel Paul, who's a full-blooded Micmac from Canada, and he wrote that book called "We Were Not the Savages," and I asked him. I said, "Well, I mean." Because everything was intrinsically tied to the Brits, getting rid of Indians up there too. I mean, they had their genocide as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, I said, well, what is it about the Brits? And I mean, he was like, well, they're just different.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the history of North America and the Europeans that came here, it's kind of hard to determine who was the worst between the British and the Spaniards, as to their attitudes and the way that they treated the Native Americans. The French, on the other hand, seem to have been able to, get along with the natives considerably better. I'm sure they did some bad things too, but by and large, I mean, it seemed like the Brits didn't want to make any compromise, did not want to intermarry with them. At least the Spaniards did do that, and of course the French did. They didn't intermarry with the people, and they pretty much wiped out anybody that got in their way because they wanted their land and resources.
Well, I mean, what's the lesson, though? I mean, who won the continent? The Brits did.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. I mean, and the other thing, too, is earlier on, you also had a certain influx into Canada of the Jesuit persuasion, who tried to proselytize all the native peoples in the upper Mississippi Valley. So, I mean...
Yeah, the Indians call them... I saw a very good movie on that. It was based on historical fact. It's called Black Robe. It was about a Jesuit priest, and the Indians just absolutely despised them. They went in and just screwed up their lives in general. They really despised them.
But, I mean, of course there was a certain ethnocentricity where anyone from Europe, I mean, looked at everyone else as being like subhuman. So I mean, that whole mindset I think was there with everyone anyway. So, whoever went anywhere, I mean, I think a necessary part of colonization is to look at the people you're colonizing as being less than human. That makes it all so much easier.
Well, sure. Once you start categorizing any group as subhuman, the next step is to treat them as if they were animals, or even worse than you might treat animals.
So, strange people. And, kind of a tongue-in-cheek look back at history. And it said the problems of the United States are generally due to the loose immigration laws of the native peoples.
Yeah.
I mean, if they knew what was coming, boy, I tell you what, they would have summoned everybody to the East Coast.
They had everybody on the shore.
There you go. We're not doing this.
You're not landing that boat here, pal.
Seriously. So.
Yeah. They. I don't think they were even thinking in those terms. It's not they necessarily welcomed them with open arms, but they weren't. As far as I know, they weren't, trying to wipe every single one of them out.
And the native people's got to love it every time in the United States we celebrate Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you give them corn?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of groups in America that talk about what a raw deal they got, Obviously, black people got a raw deal early on and all that, but nobody got a worse deal than the Native Americans.
Yeah, nobody. Excuse us for being here. Okay. Yep. Anyway.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it seems to have been, don't you wonder, and I mean, this is just like a huge question, but I mean, you take a look at the way things are today and just how the whole power base is. Mm-hmm. And, you wonder why, and think about it. I mean, Europe, you can laugh at Europe, and of course Americans are quick to do that because obviously we have this little stigma to our historical vision. But I mean, why was Europe like basically the center of the universe? When you think about it, I mean, why Europe? Why white Anglo-Saxons? But that's the way it was. I mean, you know, you didn't see anybody in like Mozambique going out and conquering the world, but they did, you know. So I mean,
well,
I'm not
you
saying
know, prior to that, though, you had the three great world empires. Actually, four. One is continuing in the Roman Empire, but you know, you had the Babylonians, you had the Persians, and you had the Greeks. Of course, Alexander the Greek conquered almost all of the known world at the time that he lived. You know, that was amazing that from such a small country, and you know, such a small region, and really not that big of a population, that Alexander the Great could have been that much of a military tactician and a leader, that he could have conquered all the places that he did. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. But it goes back, you know, to those peoples and to that place.
And it also goes back to the fact that God was allowing this to happen. You know, God said this is going to happen, and He told that to Nebuchadnezzar. You know, when Daniel interpreted a dream, God let him know what was going to happen and what He was going to allow to happen, and it did just exactly the way He said it would.
Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar wasn't too happy about that.
No, he wasn't.
That's actually a comical part of the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, when Nebuchadnezzar basically says to Daniel, "Why can't you prophesy something better?" Sorry, boss. I mean, this comes from the Home Office.
Yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next step.
Yes, it's safe to go on.
Okay. I was going to talk some more. We had started talking about the European aristocracy and how that fitted into the idea of world government through a united Europe and a revived Roman Empire. It's obviously a very complex subject, and I did a little more research on that. And I want to start it off reading kind of a general outline of what happened, what has happened in recent history, and what it's all about from Alex Constantine, and then flesh it out with some more work from different people. In Constantine's, I'm trying to remember the title of this thing, The Spider's Web, he talks about the general outline of recent history and what has been going on with the secret societies, and he talks about Blavatsky at first. Blavatsky's breakthrough book, The Secret Doctrine, was an attempt to popularize the racist concept of Rosicrucian belief at a time of great change and turmoil. America was recovering from a civil war, and the abolition of slavery was forcing a redefinition of the West's perception of race. The radical decision to reveal the beliefs of the power elite came at a time when desperate measures seemed necessary. Now, this is important. The radical decision to reveal the beliefs of the power elite. He goes on to say, the priory of Sion within the royal houses of Europe and various occult circles were attempting to create a movement with their Synarchy ideology, a politicized form of Rosicrucian doctrine. Synarchy advocated government by secret society, an elite of enlightened initiates who rule from behind the scenes. This found expression through the writings of Joseph St. Yves d'Alvedra, which called for the infiltration of, quote, the three pillars of society: political and social institutions, economic institutions, and religious institutions. The infamous Protocols of the Learned Elders of Sion, and in parentheses commonly known by its English variant, Zion, are clearly some form of manifesto for the implementation of Synarchy's aims, and are signed by the, quote, representatives of Sion of the 33rd degree. Not surprisingly, the content of the protocols has much similarity to Albert Pike's central works, Morals and Dogma. Synarchy was opposed to the ideas of social equality, and as only the Synarchists were the natural leaders. As the masses of Europe were rising up rebelliously against their feudal overlords, the Holy Roman Empire was in disarray. The First Reich, founded in 800 by the Emperor of the West, Charlemagne, had been smashed by Napoleon following the French Revolution. With Napoleon's eventual defeat, the Holy Roman Empire reformed in a weakened and splintered state. Prussia/Germany took the former Gnostic Cathar regions of Lorraine and Alsace back from revolutionary France and established the Second Empire under Kaiser Wilhelm I. He was allied with the Austrian-Hungarian-Croatian Empire, which was still under the control of the Grail bloodline House of Habsburg, who had been ruling for the previous 600 years. I think it's important here to point out, talking about the Grail bloodline, these are the people who believe that they are in line with being the bloodline of Jesus Christ, who had a relationship with Mary Magdalene, which I believe is an absolute blasphemous lie, but it seems to work well for these people to give them a reason to believe that they had the right to lord it over others. Power was still very much in the hands of the princes of Europe and the Vatican, who found unity within their occult secret church that has historically always existed behind the visible church. Theosophy was born in 1875, a key time of political upheaval throughout Europe, as Russia was moving toward revolution, following the example set by America and France. The Theosophy movement was an attempt to occultize the newly emerging industrial and merchant class and provide a spiritual antidote to Marxism, straight from the Rosicrucian philosophy that previously had been for hand-picked initiates only. The Grail aristocratic families of the Holy Roman Empire were planning to reunify the old territories and needed the control and support of the managing classes. It is no coincidence that their plan to, quote, infiltrate Freemasonry and seize absolute control of the Western world's social, political, and economic institutions, as outlined in the Protocols of Sion, appeared simultaneously with the Synarchy ideology and the creation of Madame Blavatsky's Theosophy movement. As the Protocol stressed, and I quote, our philosophers will discuss all the shortcomings of the various beliefs of the manipulated, but no one will ever bring under discussion our faith from its true point of view, since this will be fully learned by none other save ourselves, who will never betray its secrets. The Priory of Science, the Priory of Science, Hiron du Val d'Or, that described a theocracy wherein nations, and this is a quote, a theocracy wherein nations will be no more than provinces, their leaders but proconsuls in the service of a world occult government consisting of an elite. This regime of the great king will be a double hegemony of the papacy and the empire of the Vatican and the Habsburgs. The ambitious scheme was started with the assassination of the Habsburg heir, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in 1914, an event that ignited the First World War. From an aristocratic background, Helena Blavatsky, the widow of Russian Army General Count Blavatsky, designed elaborate genetic family trees that clearly illustrated the superiority of the Aryan people over the other races of the world. These strange beliefs were heralded by middle-class occultists throughout Germany and Austria-Hungary and merged with their extreme right-wing nationalist politics. Hence, complete reunification of the Holy Roman Empire, effectively abolished by Napoleon in 1806, became a priority not only of the ruling aristocracies, but also of the merchant middle classes. The ensuing horrors of the First World War was an attempt to take France from the Republicans by a vengeful aristocracy who had seen their brethren murdered by the French Revolution. The new middle-class occultists, such as, drumroll please, Guido von List and his Armanen Order, Baron von Stauffendorf and his Thule Society, and Lanz von Liebenfels and the Order of the New Templars, referred to the First World War as a holy war, revealing the quasi-religious and philosophical motives of their hidden masters. It has been documented that Nazi Party leaders Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, Rudolf Hess, and Hermann Goering were all members of these occult secret societies. The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Sion and the Hiron de Val d'Or are proof that a conspiracy of epic proportions was at play behind the broader political scheme. The end of the First World War resulted in Kaiser Wilhelm I being banished to Belgium and the removal of the Habsburgs from the throne of the Second Empire. The global hegemony of great king and pope was delayed. The Habsburgs' reluctant abdication was upon the insistence of the Allied nations and their Treaty of Saint-Germain. Incidentally, the Order of Saint-Germain is the French royal steward equivalent of the Habsburgs' Order of Sion, each laying claim to genetic superiority and kingship of Jerusalem. Such is a secret subtext of European war and politics. In his popular book, Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler conveniently used the protocols of the Elders of Sion to deceptively, quote, prove that a global conspiracy was afoot. But led by the League of Jewish Rabbis, this stirred massive anti-Semitism and ultimately justified the Holocaust. To the German people. Earlier in 1919, the newly formed Thule Society had distributed copies of the controversial protocols to troops of the White Russian Army, loyal to the Tsar, in an attempt to blame the Jews for the ensuing revolution. This led to the massacre of 60,000 Jews over 2 years and was perhaps the beginning of the Jewish Holocaust. The Rosicrucian Protocols document is still used by neo-Nazi groups throughout the world to stir anti-Semitism. We talked about how it's one of the most popular books in the Arab world at this time.
All right, hold on. Let me just clarify.
Okay.
What it sounded like was that the protocols of the learned elders
of science,
right, was distributed to the whites, the Mensheviks, who were supporting the Tsar, as to turn favor away from him.
Well, yeah, it was an attempt to blame the Jews for the revolution itself.
Well,
to lay it at their feet.
Well, but I mean, in essence, I mean that's what you hear a lot. If you're looking at Trotsky and Lenin.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't sway the balance of power or anything. I mean, the whites obviously lost anyway. Mm-hmm. What factor do you think that played as far as?
I think that was just to lay down. I think that was to lay down a background. I think that was to to get things fired up for a Holocaust. Obviously, it resulted in what they said, the massacre of 60,000 Jews, and
at the hands of the Mensheviks.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So, all right. I don't mean to press on this, but
yeah.
Do you know what the time span might have been for that, if you will, pogrom, a genocide of 60,000?
Yeah, it was in 1919. I think from 1919 to 1921.
Jeez. So I'm saying, I'm thinking to myself, the Mensheviks obviously get pushed out of the picture. Mm-hmm. So before they, I guess, fade away or whatever happened with the Mensheviks, unless they became, in essence, Bolsheviks, before they went, they whacked about 60,000 Jews. Mm-hmm. In retaliation, perhaps, for like the taking over of Russia by, I guess, what they considered. I mean, you hear this a lot. Russian Jews, which would be what? It would be Lenin. It would be
Trotsky. There's quite a few of those guys. Early on, many of the early communists were Jewish. I mean, they didn't go to the synagogue. They didn't practice Judaism, but a lot of the Russian intellectuals who were opposed to the Tsar were Jews. And it was very convenient, it's all a Jewish conspiracy, when in actuality, a little more deep than that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this goes to the root of the whole problem with the Jews did it.
Yeah.
I mean,
all my life, very convenient.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, without going into the whole 9 yards once again, it's when I look at Lenin and Trotsky and the rest of them. Who was it? Kerensky also was in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never looked at them as being Jewish. I looked at them as being like Russian reactionaries.
That's exactly what they were.
Yeah, and I mean, all right, so what makes them Jewish? I mean, I don't know. They got a last name that's Jewish. I mean, they don't go Chabad or anything like that. So it's, okay. But that's interesting because I didn't realize that also. Mm-hmm. That if that pogrom went into 1921, as far as I understand, they had, the whites, the Mensheviks, had already lost power.
Well, it had been a time-honored tradition to round up the Jews and kill a few of them, or sometimes more than a few in Russia, just as it had in Europe in general. And I think in this case, they stirred up hatred, with this book. And here's the kicker. Although thought by many, I'm reading from his work again, although thought by many academics to be a creation of Russian Tsar Nicholas II's secret police, to those aware of the occult references, the Protocols of Sion clearly show the hand of the Grail dragon sovereignty. It is likely the Tsarist altered the text to include traditional Jewish terminology, otherwise had no place in what is obviously a Rosicrucian agenda with Jesuit overtones. Also overlooked in the analysis of the protocols is their similarity to the little heard of secret instructions of the Society of Jesus, which outline a goal of bringing in a golden age of millennium with the entire world under the authority of the Pope to enable a second coming of Jesus Christ. Indeed, the Jesuits' secret instructions could be considered a prototype of the Protocols of Sion, with its rhetoric of subterfuge such as, we must inculcate this doctrine with princes and kings, that the Catholic faith cannot exist in the present state without politics, but that in this it is necessary to proceed with much certainty. Of this mode we must share the affection of the great and be admitted to the most secret council. And he goes on to say, it is clear that the Nazi movement was a new approach to feudalism by the same aristocratic ruling powers. Realizing that some sense of revolution must be fulfilled in the ordinary working classes, Nazism gave the impression of revolution, but was in fact the restoration of the feudal overlords of the Holy Roman Empire and the beginning of the National Socialist deception. Following the widespread distribution of the protocols by the Thule Society and Hitler's protege Otto Rosenberg, and Rosenberg, I might point out, was a Baltic German. He was involved in the Russian Revolution. He was fighting against the communists. It was the added Jewish elements that were seized upon by Hitler's Mein Kampf and Henry Ford's The International Jew. Conveniently, both of these fervently anti-Semitic works chose to ignore the Rosicrucian references of the protocols and the fact that the Return of the King agenda is not traditionally Jewish or a historical goal of Jewish Zionism, but the secret goal of the Catholic Rosicrucian Grail elites. Perhaps the popularization of the altered protocols was an attempt at damage control and a pointing of the finger away from the true authors, as their actual neo-feudalistic agenda was becoming known by political and occult scholars, or something even more nefarious. It is hardly credible that the baddies would reveal their failed purposes so blatantly, commented Foucault's Pendulum author Umberto Eco on the current recycling of the protocols within popular culture and the disturbing rise of what he called crude forms of racism of the neo-Celtic kind. And yet, the use of the protocols was the primary justification for the Holocaust and the attempted annihilation of the Jews, who were regarded as the historical perfidious enemy of both Jesuit and Rosicrucian elites.
All right,
what he's trying to say in here is that the authors of the protocols are not, and he does say it, the protocols of the elders of Sion are the work of the Jesuits, the European Council of Princes, and their Rosicrucian allies within 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemasonry. As outlined in the final protocol, quote, confirming the roots of King David and the training of the king, the Grail Christ bloodline conspirators insist that, quote, sensuality worse than all else disorganizes the capacities of the mind and the clearness of views. It should not be a quality of their king, thus denying any instinctive connection to his humanity in true Jesuit Rosicrucian style. And Constantine says, it's true, there's little in Judaism about the repressing of the senses in order to achieve any kind of kinghood.
Well, that's a mouthful. Holy mackerel. I mean,
yeah.
Going back to what was said, it's thought that, I mean, we've said the same thing too, and of course those who would defend the Catholic Church, I mean, not that I'm banging on them with this, but if they choose not to want to differentiate between the Vatican's rather secular political position, at least, well, geez, I mean, it goes back to a millennia.
Yeah.
But especially since the Jesuits took over the Vatican in around 1820s and back at the Treaty of Verona. But, I mean, you had the Protocols of the Elders of Sion, short term, and that seems to be penned by Jesuits. But also, and I forget who was trying to track this down.
Well, the thing that is so unique about it and so clever about it is you reveal your plan. You reveal it in a sort of a veiled way, and you blame it on those that you consider your enemies, and you use it as a method to get rid of them.
Well, yeah. Well, and this also goes for Mein Kampf, and also for what I can...
Exactly. Mein Kampf was actually written by Bernard Stampel, or at least they believe it was. We know for a fact that Bernard Stampel was a Jesuit priest, and that he was one of the most frequent visitors to Hitler and in Landsberg prison, along with Rudolf Hess, who was in prison along with him, and Karl Haushofer. They know that Stampel was one of the editors, and many believe, including Edmund Paris, who was quite a historian who wrote the Secret History of the Jesuits.
Right.
He says that Stampel wrote it and basically said, look, I took your input and I wrote this, and this is what we want to call Mein Kampf, your struggle, here it is, sign your name and we'll put it out.
Yeah, and, obviously, we believe definitely that Hitler had, whatever he cared about his fellow Germans, I doubt it was much. The thing is, he had a job to do and he did it, which I think explains a lot of his supposed aberrant behavior as being anything but aberrant. That's exactly what he was supposed to do.
Right.
And we've been through that a million times.
Yeah.
Also, the same thing goes for the manifesto of the Communist Party. That comes from Marx and Engels. I don't think so.
Yeah.
What does that mean in the court of law? Nothing.
That one I don't know. I wouldn't doubt it, but that one I don't know about. I haven't really studied that. I'd be interested in finding out, what evidence there might be the Jesuits had a hand in that, and they may very well have. I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't. I haven't studied it.
Well, let's put it this way. To my liking, should I say? To my satisfaction. I have to be careful about that. But I'd have to say, looking at Marx and looking at that manifesto, it's like you did that. And what's funny too is that Engels, old man, was a capitalist in London, or in England rather, and didn't seem to be at all, for somebody to come out of a prosperous, burgher family or whatever, to rail against the very thing that allowed them to write that, at least financial support. And I guess it's getting a little cryptic, but still in all, I can't prove it, but I find it interesting that these three documents that seem to have had such an impact on Europe and Eurasia and probably the world. I don't know. There seems to be some kind of very dubious authorship about this.
They sure do. Here's something else that Constantine says. He puts a lot together here. Discovered toward the end of the Holy Roman Empire's 30 years' war with itself that resulted in France being given part of Alsace and Lorraine, only to be later reclaimed by the Second and Third Empires, and cities ruined and millions dead, the Jesuits' secret instructions clearly are an inspirational source for the Protocols of Sion, which would be written 200 years later, following the formation of ancient and accepted Scottish Rite Freemasonry, with passages such as, "If the Pope should return as temporal prince of all the properties, for as much as it is very necessary to extend little by little, with much secrecy of skill, the temporalities of the society, and not having any doubt that the world will enter the golden age." There can be no doubt, and here again, the Protocols of the Elders of Sion are the work of the Jesuits, the European Council of Princes, and their Rosicrucian allies within the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemasonry.
Now, I won't pin you on this, but the one thing I did not mention thus far, which, again, you've mentioned, and that is the Rosicrucians. Would this be the German Rosicrucians?
I think so. I'm not really sure. It's never been clear to me exactly who and what the Rosicrucians really are, other than a secret society amongst a group of secret societies.
And yet not so secret in a sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned this in the series, but Liam and I went back and forth, and I think the Freemasons are pretty much held out to be a punching bag as well. That the higher degrees in both
they're a lower level. As far as I see, they're important, but they are at a lower level. And getting to the top of the Freemasons enables you to get to a higher level, which I believe would be the Rosicrucians, and gosh, I don't know who all is at the top.
Well, I
other
think
than Satan.
Well, I think it's there's merit in discussing this for a second because, I understand that the higher rites in both York and Scottish Rite or the higher degrees rather, yeah, they inculcate occult symbolism, but that goes far beyond them, before them. That they use it, I don't think is that cool, but that's what they do. And that it festooned that kind of pagan imagery in the District of Columbia, I don't necessarily blame on Freemasons. I blame it on basically Satan and the fact that a lot of what's down there, if not all of it, I mean, transcends, if you want to use that word, Freemasonry. Again, it's almost like holding the Jews out for everything that ever went wrong. Well, they hold the Freemasons out for everything that went wrong. And all this stuff goes much further back than all of these societies. Now, the Rosicrucians are, and this is what Liam was driving at. He's going, for the most part, and he made this, this was in a email between friends, let's say, but he just cut to the chase and said, for the most part, the Rosicrucians look at the Freemasons as being basically sluggards.
Yeah.
Now, remember something, too. Now, do you remember years ago when I read that? William Cooper had done that as well. I mean, he did that first. But, I got that stuff from Paul Topete. And that was pages from the 68th? Oh, man, what was that? Do you remember that? The 68th Conclave or something like that?
Yeah, I remember you had a show on it.
Yeah.
And you read several passages from a book about the Rosicrucians, and you talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah, but
I don't remember all the details at this point.
Here's the point, and I went further with that book called the Meneses Chronicles. That all came out of that same Rosicrucian Center, which is in Quakerstown, Pennsylvania. And they consider themselves the German Rosicrucians, and they consider themselves the original Rosicrucians,
right,
with a certain kind of elbow to those that are out there on the West Coast. But in that 68th Enclave, or wherever that was, in 1913, I believe it was, the statement, let me see, who was that again? Boy, I wish I had that stuff at my fingertips. All right, I'm not going to worry about that.
Yeah, it's hard to really talk about a lot of these subjects without having material to back it up, that you can refer back and forth to, because it's so complex and there's so many different people involved and so many different concepts involved.
Well, I was trying to think of the author of that particular piece, and it'll come to me. It was the family of a Pennsylvania family, who were signatories to I think the Declaration. And I'm not, like I said, it'll come to me sometime during today. But the thing that they wrote about that, which if you remember, is they called a shot and they said that the truncated pyramid will have that capstone, the all-seeing eye, set upon it when Mexico was brought back into the United States as it was in Egypt.
Yeah. And right now, as we well know,
look at it. Right,
we're at that point where that is going to be happening relatively soon. The United States, Canada, and Mexico, as far as I can tell from everything I've read, is that those three nations will comprise one of the zones, one of the kingdoms, or one of the economic zones of this, 10 kingdoms that are going to,
be created. Yeah,
be created, exactly. And of course, the EU is just one of those.
All right, and just to finish this off, and this is why it spooks me to a great extent, and it's the reason why I bought that stinking book, so I could at least read it.
Can I read something for you?
Sure.
Otto von Habsburg said?
Yeah.
Otto von Habsburg, and this is from a book called, an article written by a person who's actually, I think, a fan of the Merovingians, Tracy R. Twyman, is from Dragon Key Press. But anyway, I don't know if it's a man or woman, but Tracy... Oh,
it's a she, and she was on the show.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
About 2 months ago.
Yeah?
Yeah, Colvin brought her on.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I'll have to go back and listen to that again.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's okay that you don't listen to the show. It's fine. You're on it.
No, I listened. I just didn't know that was the same person. At any rate.
Go ahead.
Didn't catch the name. At any rate, Otto von Habsburg stated in a recent interview, and this is written in 2004, NAFTA will also develop into such an organization like the EU. Then we can gradually come to what will be a global organization. In other words, he's sort of in a veiled way saying, well, this is part of world government, and NAFTA is bringing that into effect. In other words, the North American Union.
Now,
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
Oh, no. I'm joshing with you. That's okay. Yeah. No, but Cole, I mean, I would never have had her on.
Yeah.
But Andy brought her on. I mean, not that I'm not making fun of it. It's just that that's what Andy does, and I would not have thought about doing it.
Well, from what I've read here, I don't get the impression that she is like a harmful person, but
no.
I just don't believe. I believe that she is a what we call, I wouldn't say an occultist, but
New Age.
Yeah, New Age type.
Yeah. I agree.
I like Andy an awful lot. I wouldn't want to say something bad about his friends.
No. But I mean, actually, it isn't. But what he was trying to, she isn't a friend of his. But what he was trying to do, more or less, is that there's a complaint that he's sensitive to that more women in the paranormal / I guess New Age area don't get more airtime. So he was going to help that out. And he's I don't even want to use the word channeled certain people this way, and and Twyman was one of them. I mean, to me, it was no big aha. I mean, she was also involved in that website, if you remember, Dagobert's or Dagobert's, however you want to say, Revenge.
I think it's Dagobert, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, great. But I just want to, at this time, since we're talking about it, and I know it's not the focus of this, but I just got to throw this out because to me, it still gives me gooseflesh. And that is, think about that book, about that. What took place at that conclave out in Quakerstown back in 1913. That's when the statement was made about Mexico and all this stuff. Interesting. And then I think about that book, The Meneses Chronicles, whose author uses a pseudonym. And he's the one that poses this scenario, which I think is chillingly accurate about what might happen in America. And just to capsulize it, what he's saying is that the old world, he used that term, the old world finally got its revenge against America, and this country was invaded by foreign armies because our armies were scattered everywhere else. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And
it's been done intentionally.
Yes. And he said the only thing that stopped the invasion was a geological event that created such havoc that those, obviously, foreign armies went back to see what was left of whatever their country was, Now, when I hear that, and again, both 1913 and this book, attached to the Rosicrucians, you got to wonder. And I tell you, they do hide in plain sight. I remember back in Teaneck, we had this crazy little place called the Ethical Cultural Society, and there were Rosicrucians in there. And it was Pilot Pete that told me, he goes, well, don't you know that this is a family that was across the street from us? Don't you know that family was they were involved with Rosicrucianism? I go, no. And it didn't mean anything to him at the time because I was like, okay, that's good. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Because we played ball.
Rosicrucian?
Yeah, I mean, because we played ball with the three sons. I mean, it didn't make any difference to us. And I didn't even divine that they were involved in that.
Yeah, no, I was growing up. I just thought the Rosicrucians were some religious group, Yeah. I really had it was a vague concept. I thought they were some kind of like a charitable society or something. I didn't get it. Didn't mean anything.
No, and the thing is that they were above the fray.
Yeah.
They were very involved in education, as are the Jesuits, by the way.
Exactly.
They have the best universities that there are.
Yeah.
And yet they want everyone else to have the good old garbage public education system. Mm-hmm. But they are definitely the best educators, no doubt about it. And one last thing real quick, and this is kind of an aha, and thank you for giving me this time. But
it's your show.
No. Here we go with that stuff again. I had a football coach.
I got to give you a little bit of crap,
Oh, you never cease to do that.
It won't be fun.
It won't be fun unless you can just give it to me.
Go ahead.
Did you go to a 4-year high school or a 3?
4.
All right. I went to a 3. But the thing is, I moved. Oh, man, that sucked. I moved from Cliffside to go to Teaneck. And we had this coach. I don't know what his deal was. And what was worse is that I eventually became his captain in my senior year, and we did not get along.
Not good.
No, and I mean,
not good.
I thought to me, he just sucked as a coach.
Yeah.
But the point is that he was always above it all. he kind of looked at us with a certain disdain that really started to get on us. And then I realized that he went to Villanova. And it's like, now where did you get that certain kind of taciturn, above it all, and we're the little people attitude? Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when we played, he never wore like a baseball cap that had a T on it for T-neck. He had the V on it.
Oh.
And I feel like saying, hey, coach, this ain't Villanova.
Yeah.
Anyway, but when I look back at his...
You always root against them.
Oh, yeah, Notre Dame, come on, baby.
Notre Dame, Villanova, Loyola, I always root against them.
And you know what's really rich now? Come bowl time, guess who are playing each other? Florida State, the Noles, and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think I'm rooting for the Seminoles.
I think I'm going to be in there on that one.
Oh, yeah, Seminoles all the way.
Yeah, that's when I'm going to make believe it's a game, but I'm really not. I'm going to have a pillow in my mouth so I don't make guttural loud noises. All right, listen, thanks a lot for that, but I just wanted to say that for people who haven't even processed who the Rosicrucians are, they're players also, and I think they're the ones who profit very much by the fact that they can throw out the Freemasons and everybody beats up with them, you know?
Yeah.
All righty.
Well, I will say, before I go on any more with about the Merovingian bloodlines and all that, this is an extremely complex subject, and an awful lot of people have written about it. And I've just started kind of getting my feet wet as to doing research on it. And one thing I'm finding is you've got these different camps of people. There are Christians, there are occultists, there are people who are, just pure academics who aren't biased one way or the other, who are all writing about these things. And it's a fascinating story, and it takes place over the course of about 1,500 years or something, and it's very difficult to get good information, and make sure that what you're reading is correct. But doing the best you can at this point. But there are certain groups and certain events in history that they all agree on. They may not agree on the interpretation as to what all it might have meant, but I've just putting that in there, so bear with me and try to ferret through the crap here and see if we can get something that kind of explains it all. But I think it's pretty simple in that we're saying that the secret societies, such as the Priory of Sion and the some of the others, the Jesuits for that matter, the secret society, the Templars, i.e. the modern-day equivalent of the Templars, which is the Masons, that they're all involved with the planning for a world federation, a world government, and eventually a revival of the Holy Roman Empire. I'll read some more from Tracy's story here, article, Pax Europa, the United States of Europe and the Merovingian Master Plan. The Carolingian dynasty ended in 918, but the Holy Roman Empire continued to play a decisive role in the unfolding of its destiny. The Carolingian dynasty was based upon the first Holy Roman Emperor, which was Charlemagne. It was during this time that the empire began to turn its sights toward the Holy Land. The First Crusade began in 1095, and the entire enterprise was brought about because of the pressure that certain Merovingian descendants placed upon the Pope and the nobility of Europe. This resulted in the capture of Jerusalem 4 years later and the creation of the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem as a part of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, the reason that they did this, the reason that they wanted to take Jerusalem, is they believed themselves to be the descendants of Jesus Christ, right, and the descendants of King David. They believed that they were Davidian and they were in the line of David, and that Jerusalem belonged to them. This was part of their kingdom. This should have been their holy city. And they didn't like the idea of the Muslims being there and wanted to throw them out. And I think everybody understands that.
Well, let's just add to this the fact that to this day, the Vatican wants to have full custodianship of Jerusalem, and that's not because they're nice guys. Once again, this continues behind this facade, this disguise of ecclesiastical pursuit, when in essence, you and I don't have to explain it to one another. We can't do that with everyone right here, but right now you understand that even from the 1000s, that was all about Satan wanting to take the place.
Exactly.
That's dearest to the Lord's heart.
The whole idea behind world government and the revival of the Holy Roman Empire is to put Satan into a position where he can be literally worshipped as a god, and that he will be considered a god to the people of the world who will be called upon to worship him.
And his throne will be, are we agreed? He wants it in Jerusalem.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I'll read this again. I kind of got started and got off track.
No, I got you off track, but thank you.
Okay, no problem. This resulted in the capture of Jerusalem 4 years later and the creation of the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem as part of the Holy Roman Empire. The capture was led by Godfrey de Bouillon, a descendant of Dagobert II, and his brother Baldwin I was proclaimed King of Jerusalem. The Merovingian descendants appear to have considered the Holy Land their rightful possession, once again due to their direct descent from King David, and Jerusalem was in a way their coronation stone, legitimizing their eventual return to the rule of the Holy Roman Empire. Now she is granting them this idea. She buys into this idea of them being descendants of Jesus Christ. She believes that Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ had a sexual relationship, and that these people are in that bloodline. So I wanted to point that out, that this is a true believer here, and I'm not. Obviously, you're not either. So
no.
It was to this goal that they immediately dedicated themselves, and with the help of Baldwin II, son of Baldwin I, who died shortly after the capture of the Holy Land, a group of knights was formed supposedly to help keep the roads to Jerusalem safe for pilgrims. Its core members were all from the Merovingian Grail families, and they soon went about establishing their own sort of empire throughout Europe, one based upon the power of money. The Templars were legally beholden to none but the Pope, and even that they took lightly. So any land controlled by them was essentially an independent principality. They held possessions throughout the continent and controlled major industries, especially that of banking. Soon they had all the princes of Europe indebted to them. It took the Pope and the King of France colluding against them to get them disbanded, excommunicated, and in some cases burnt to the stake before the Templar menace was finally subdued. Meanwhile, Merovingian descendants were busy reclaiming the throne of the Holy Roman Empire via another avenue. In 1273, Count Rudolph of the Merovingian entwined Habsburg dynasty, later Habsburg-Lorraine, was elected Holy Roman Emperor, and the title stayed within the family until the empire itself collapsed in 1806. Interestingly, the empire was ended by Napoleon, himself husband of a Merovingian princess, who had consciously attempted to associate herself with the Merovingian mystique by placing golden bees from the tomb of the Merovingian king Childeric III on his coronation robe. If you've ever looked at the symbolism that the Masons use, you'll notice that bees and beehives are important in their hierarchy of symbolism. Yeah. It is also interesting to note that although he was not of royal blood himself, he was recognized as an emperor and ruled over a pan-European empire, much like the ones that he had just crushed. The Habsburgs remained the emperors of Austria and then Austro-Hungary until the Revolution of 1919, making them the longest reigning European dynasty in history, and their role in European politics was not over by a long shot. The Knights Templar had been the brainchild of another secret society which spawned them. And again, we're talking about the Priory of Sion. The Priory of Sion, an order dedicated nothing less than the restoration of the Merovingian bloodline to the thrones of Europe. That is the sole purpose of the Priory of Sion, is the idea of returning the Merovingian bloodline families to the thrones of Europe. And that's what they're dedicated to doing. I have a quote here. I'll continue with this other story, or this other article in a minute, but here's a quote from another book called The Templar Revelation, by Lynn Pinkett and Clive Prince. The Priory of Sion claimed that Godfrey de Bouillon met representatives of a mysterious Church of John, in other words, the Brothers of Ormus, and as a result of that encounter, decided to form a secret government. The Knights Templar and the Priory of Sion were duly created as part of this master plan to conform to the ideals of this mysterious Church of John. Well, I think you can figure out who was the head of that church. In 1873, they sponsored the creation, we're talking about Priory of Sion, and in 1873, they sponsored the creation of another front organization, the Hiron de Val d'Or, whose name is the Holy Book, Holy Blood, Holy Grail Notes, contains an anagram of the place name Orval, a location that seems to be particularly important to the Merovingians and the Priory of Sion. Notably, the word Orval contains the syllables which in French mean gold and valley. Thus, Val d'Or means Valley of Gold. In his 1979 book, Le Trésor du Triangle d'Or, The Treasure of the Golden Triangle, man, my French is great, Jean-Luc Chomil states that the Hiron practiced a version of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, and that the upper degrees of this order constituted the lower degrees of the Priory of Sion itself. There you go. Chomel described the group's disposition as Christian, Hermetic, and aristocratic. And again, we see the concept that the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is like I guess you could liken it to a farm club, for a major league ball club.
Yeah.
If you put it in sports terms, I mean, this is where they reach down and go, well, this guy looks like a good candidate for the big club. This guy has the talent that we're looking for. He's gone up through the degrees, in masonry, and now we can pull him into the higher secret societies, i.e. the Rosicrucians, the Priory de Sion, etc. They proclaim themselves to be Catholic, even though the Church of Rome condemned them. Well, they maybe condemned them, but I don't really see that they did anything, to stop them. A characteristic emphasis on sacred geometry and various sacred sites, an insistence on a mystical or Gnostic truth underlying mythological motifs, and a preoccupation of the origin of men, races, language, and symbols. And that's what it says in the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, talking about that society. Simultaneously Christian and trans-Christian, I don't know what that means, is stress the importance of the Sacred Heart, sought to recognize Christian and pagan mysteries, ascribed special significance to Druidic thought, which it regarded as particularly Pythagorean. The Hiron de Val d'Or was also unabashedly pro-monarchist and sought a restoration of the Holy Roman Empire. But this one would be built, unlike the previous one, on an ultimately spiritual basis, a vision specifically echoed in the Priory of Sion's own literature. The new empire would be a reflection of heaven on earth, that specifically Hermetic Arcadian ideal. Jean-Luc Chomil described the Hiron agenda as a theocracy wherein nations would be no more than provinces, their leaders but proconsuls in the service of a world occult government, consisting of an elite. For Europe, this regime of the great king implied a double hegemony of the papacy and the empire of the Vatican and of the Habsburgs, who would have been the Vatican's right arm. Here we go. That's really what the way the Habsburgs were serving the Vatican in the First World War, and in a sense did in the Second World War through the Third Reich. At the same time, though, this vision accords. Excuse me, I got ahead of myself. Let's see. The authors of Holy Blood, Holy Grail were quick to point out that this envisioned scenario accords with the Nostradamus prophecy about the great king who would issue from the House of Lorraine, since the Habsburgs were the House of Lorraine. At the same time, though, this vision accords with that shared by numerous other cultures throughout the world and throughout history who've embraced the myth of the King of the World, a legendary quasi-divine global monarch who, it is said by those who believe in him, currently lives in the center of the earth, psychically directing the affairs of mankind, and who will incarnate in human form at the end of our current epoch so that he can rule earth directly. It further accords with the King of the Blood of Sion image discussed in the infamous Protocols of Sion, which, as Holy Blood, Holy Grail hypothesizes, may well have been the minutes of a meeting of the Priory of Sion, as it describes a plot by the descendants of King David to take over the world. Well, that's exactly what Constantine kept saying, that it was that document, Protocols of the Elders of Zion, is actually it was actually written by the secret society itself, and not by any group of Jewish rabbis. but it was laid on the Jews. And since it's so cleverly done, and it shows the plan for taking over the world, everybody, or not everybody, but a great many people in Europe went ahead and bought into it, especially in Germany. And
well, they're doing it here.
Yeah, they're doing it here.
Yeah,
right.
I
was looking at their website for the American Free Press, and I started looking at some of the books that they had in the back, that they were selling, and I noticed that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was, one of the biggies. They had a big advertisement for it. And as we well know, that book is extremely popular in the Middle East. And I'm sure, it's popular with all the various right-wing groups.
Oh, and
anti-Semitic groups.
This passed without my knowing it. Not a big deal. But their CEO, Gunderson, is dead.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, so 2011 wasn't without some of its high points.
Mm-hmm. I didn't want to say it.
No, I don't care. He's a piece of shit.
There were no tears coming from my eye.
No, not at all. No, and I told you the story about him. I mean, he started this company, HEB Incorporated, which, and the HEB meant help eliminate bullshit. That's what those letters meant. That was an inside joke on them. And underneath that umbrella corporation was the American Free Press, which he somewhat distanced himself from being involved with, other than being a columnist.
That the American Free Press had a sister paper, a sister publication called the Barnes Review, and the Barnes Review is just nothing but neo-Nazism, and it they're based at the same place. They have basically the same business address. That's kind of spooky.
Yeah, it's and their headquarters is a walk up above I don't know, some marine enlistment place in some Chinese restaurant. It's not what you would call a massive complex. No, like I said, I mean, I went in there not knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I sort of realized what was going on, and I'm sorry, that's just not journalism. That's bullshit. And but it doesn't surprise me. Victor Thorne also, I mean, is an unabashed Jew hater as well. So I mean, he's in Clover, being there with Michael Collins Piper and some of the others.
Oh yeah, that guy's vile. Michael Collins Piper, guy's vile.
Yep.
I mean, he needs a swastika on armband. So you can see him coming. What
used to crack me up is that John Kaminsky's a big Jew basher. I'm like, Kaminsky? Does that name not mean anything to anybody? I mean, where are you from, dude? Anyway, so he's thankfully relegated under some rock down here in Florida. So I had the bad fortune to meet him.
Crawls out every once in a while, stirs up some trouble, I guess.
Less and less, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I'm sorry, but I mean, we're going to assassinate these people because they deserve assassination. This is just pure hatred. And I always wondered, like, okay, so what's the end game, guys? You're all against. I mean, first of all, how come none of you are being brought in about hate crimes? That seems to me to be very interesting. That isn't all hate speech and all that other stuff. Not that I believe in that, but the thing is, with the way things are today, how do you guys escape this? And secondly,
well, when you have powerful connections, which I believe Gunderson had, I don't know. I really don't know, but I believe he had some pretty powerful connections. You get my drift?
Yeah, I know. It's just a very sleazy situation because he's one of these characters that always showed up, like that line from You're So Vain, You're Where You Should Be All the Time.
Yeah.
He was out there with John the Camp, and that's another whole deal that went sour.
Yeah, when you told me, what you'd heard about that, that was pretty scary there. Well, I mean, that whole story about, the Franklin cover-up is, just, I mean, you couldn't get more bizarre, more creepy, more evil. I mean, you just couldn't, I don't think.
Well, get this. Last night, not feeling well, went to sleep, after I talked to you.
Yeah.
Popped up, couldn't sleep for a while, turned on the TV, and I'm watching, like, one of those two channels. It was either the one that carries Dateline, all this other stuff. Also, anyway, it's kind of like solving crime stuff. And the other one it's called CI, Criminal Investigation. Well, one of those we're dealing with, kidnappings and pedophile. Well, sex. I can't say it's all pedophile. It's sex rings, right?
Yeah.
And who should pop up with the story about Johnny Gosh, who was kidnapped while he was on his Sunday paper route in West Des Moines, Iowa. And then who comes into that but Paul Bonacci, who's central to that whole Franklin cover-up. And Bonacci admitted that he was a tool in kidnapping Gosh because Bonacci himself was kidnapped. And that starts that whole story. So I'm looking at this thinking back to the days, with the Franklin cover-up and all that.
Right.
And then I remember also that I had some people that came on the show, and they didn't know one another, and they both said that the camp is very questionable, a bit of a sleaze himself, and now is starting to say that he's not even sure, that he knew what he was writing.
It may be that he was out there to provide disinformation and then could just totally discredit everything by coming out and saying, well, I don't remember what I was talking about.
And who was handling John DeCamp?
Yeah, Gunderson.
Gunderson.
Right? Yeah.
And then you had the McMartin daycare thing. Mm-hmm. And who was out there? Mm-hmm. Gunderson. And I had Jackie McGawley on, who cares not for Gunderson one bit. Mm-hmm. And then you got to start to wonder, if there was anybody who might have been in the real Millennium group, it might have been him.
Yeah.
You're gone, and that's cool.
I don't know, 2-3 years ago, you had a lady on who had been, I don't remember if she was CIA or if she was FBI.
You mean Hartwell?
Yeah, I guess I told you what, was it Barbara?
Barbara Hartwell?
Yeah, and she talked about Gunderson had been a friend of hers. I guess he'd been like a supervisor or something, and then he betrayed her, and she was all over his case.
Yeah, and Barbara, I can't vouch for everything, but and I know people whack on her, and I understand.
It sounded really odd. I wasn't sure whether to believe it or not. Really strange stuff.
The thing I will say about Barbara was that I had spoken to her back in early, 2003, 2002, mm-hmm. And she never came on, but we had a long conversation, mm-hmm. and then we were out of touch. And I got back in touch with her around 2008 or whatever, and I knew when I put her on that was going to bring all kinds of crap out, and it did. Ted White, that little creep from Vancouver, who was at one time Phelps' pit bull, now who was turned against him. Oh, he was all over me for that. I'm like, go. Why don't you go howl at the moon, you creep? So he makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
I think Jim Rothman called him.
Was he the guy that was trying to threaten you, physically?
Oh, yeah, all this kind of stuff. He goes back in a Wayback Machine like he's some kind of, sleuth. And he's like, oh, you were at St. Leo's, and he has all this stuff going on. He's going, why would this jerk...
What?
Huh?
So what? You were at St. Leo's. Who cares? You've told everybody and his brother about that.
Yeah, and
for years.
But what made me laugh was by the time he got to that, I was gone 3 years.
Yeah.
You jerk. Anyway, anytime I want to do anything, if I put Barbara Hartwell...
That was a scoop, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's another one. All right, I tell you what, this is pertinent to what we're doing. I'm sorry. There's some gossip here, but it's true.
Yeah.
And that is this. Charles Wilcox, who wrote Transformation of the Republic, mm-hmm. which obviously chronicles the Jesuits' influence here in the United States, especially during the Civil War.
Right.
He gets contacted by some woman who is a widow of a preacher who's fluent in French and is trying to translate some documents into English. And she went to Wilcox for some help. I don't know what exactly for. Wilcox contacted me, and I'm like, well, sure, well, I'll help where I can. So I wrote to her. I said, would you like to come on the show? And she comes back with this well, I ran this by my confidant, Tim White, and she goes, I don't know about you. I go, look, if you're tied in any way, shape, or form to Tim White, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Just walk on by.
You won't be doing the show anytime soon.
No,
Thank
and
you very
he comes
much.
on, and he comes on. He starts saying, I'll pull your weenie off and all this other stuff. I swear to God. And I wrote back to this woman, and Charles, I'm going, ma'am.
What? One more time on that?
Well, if we can assume that you're a Christian because you were the wife of a pastor. That doesn't make you a Christian, but I'm assuming that's it. I'm saying you can consort with somebody who would talk to other people or write other people in these terms, and you're okay with that? I said, listen, hey, both of you, have a nice day. Don't worry about it. But
there are some people out there that are just so weird.
But that's the Internet, man.
It,
that's the Internet. The Internet opens up the seventh circle of hell. and they come out really like that. But not only that, but here's what also happened. She accused Eric John Phelps of something akin to slavery. I have no idea what that means. That she was working in his service or whatever. I have no idea.
Like he didn't pay her for her services or something?
Yeah, that's the gist I got. But I never went any further because obviously White plopped his big fat ass into this thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, look. And then he started with me. I'm like, dude, you're not worth it. Have a nice day. Like I said, go howl at the moon. Don't worry about it. Go sniff some little girl's bicycle seat. He's disgusting. He's disgusting. He's got a big mouth, a tough guy over the internet,
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are really tough when it comes to running their mouth anonymously.
Well, I mean, why not? But, I mean, the thing is, it's like, what are you supposed to do, shake me up? I don't care.
I see sometimes I'll read a sports blog, and, I mean, people will say things, and one thing I really like is they'll use we when they're talking about a team. We're going to do this, and we're going to, hey, dude, you don't play for that team.
I was going to say, what's your jersey number? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Those people.
It's like I associate my power with, the big, strong dudes out there playing football, or baseball or whatever. It's like, you're just a fan, that's all. You enjoy the team, that's great, but don't start saying, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. I don't know, there's a lot of people out there that, I guess, are insecure about their masculinity, or they're just, they're miserable because they don't really have any power, so they have to find some way to obtain power, even if it's through some phony BS you're talking about.
You know it, and I know it. Okay, whatever sports is.
Yeah.
And wherever I went. But the thing is that I have never stood in a stadium or an arena or any place else and stood up and high-fived somebody next to me when our team scored. It's like, get out of here, will you? Go bowling or something. God almighty. But that's what these characters are. But I mean, that to me has always been one of the problems with the internet, is that it has just unleashed this deluge of crap. Mm-hmm. And you have to sit there and try to sift as if one were in some kind of torrent trying to find gold.
I saw a thing the other day on a service where they will go in and, try to restore your reputation if you're a professional.
Yeah,
it's like, how are you going to do that? It's so easy for some nut, some disgruntled creep, to go out there and say, well, I went in this office and the doctor yelled at me, or punched me, or, if it's a woman, he sexually assaulted me. They'll put stuff like that on the internet to try to destroy the reputation of a professional. Just using a doctor in this case. Could be an architect or, whatever. And I thought, my God, if you got to that point where people are advertising a service where they're going to go clean up your reputation, which has been destroyed by some internet troll,
First of all, if I'm looking for any professional, anything else, I'm not going to the internet.
I heard that.
I'll go around and ask people I like or trust and say, look, did you ever go to anybody for something, blah, 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 and if they did, that's where I'll start. You go to some, I never go cold to any kind of company hoping I hit it luckily. And if I go to the internet, I'm like, just like you said, any jerk can go out there and do something, but I have to laugh at these companies too. Because, I remember back a long time ago when they found that this auto glass repair company, they seemed to be doing really well. And one of the reasons why was they were going out and breaking all the windows at night. You know what I mean? And so I see these companies will help restore your reputation. Well, who ruined it? I don't know. Just the internet.
It's like a protection racket.
There you go.
Only a little different angle on it.
Yeah,
they don't go in and tell you beforehand,
Yeah, if people are going to trust the internet for some kind of legitimate ranking or rating of somebody, you're an idiot to begin with.
One thing that amazes me sometimes when I'm reading these blogs is the absolute low level. Just absolute bottom level of education, and these people have the worst grammar I've ever seen. They can't spell, they can't really compose a sentence. It's just, it's like you can't even understand what they're trying to communicate because it's so badly done. And you're thinking, what did you flunk out of 5th grade? I mean, what's the deal? But that's the low level of public taste out there.
This is not a big deal, and we'll get back to what's germane here with regard to the Nazis. But I had written that email to everyone, and I used it as a postscript to our last show, 19. And I did it. I started off being a little bit like kind of aloof, but in a sense seriously. But I have to say that the internet, all that has done, is just like I said, let loose this deluge of garbage. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you, Larry, wanted to do a radio show on the demonic nature of snails, you would have immediately 100 listeners who love you.
Yeah.
I mean, look at me. Look how scary this is. And and I look at this and I go, oh my God. I mean, for whatever boon it has been to people, and I will have to say, like some of the stuff that we get through K, for instance, like with natural medicine and everything, that's good stuff. I mean, and the Weston Price stuff and Mercola, that's good. But when you look, I mean, there's so much stuff out there. It's like, holy mackerel. And what cracks me up is whenever the mainstream wants to wrap something that seems like it might have some validity, like parents who don't want their kids vaccinated because of autism.
Right.
They'll go, well, it's on the internet. But it's like, well, you're on the internet too, sweetheart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't start that crap. Because, I mean, does not NBC have a site on the internet? So they use it for both things. And it's just a tool of propaganda. But as you said, honest to goodness, Larry, and as I've seen before, and as I saw at the end of that show I did with Beyond the Grassy Knoll, it was so icky. And I'm telling you, icky, like you don't know. And I wanted these people away from me. I felt like I wanted to take a bath every time I got done reading their crap.
I think that I remember that time, and it was really tough talking to you because you were very angry at the time and frustrated. And I didn't get it. I didn't know what was going on. It wasn't really directed at me, but I took it that way. The problem was, I think those people were attacking you spiritually in a roundabout way. If you understand what I'm saying,
I don't even doubt it. And
I think that comes from the source that you and I know very well, the powers of darkness, man. If you're trying to do anything, and I remember your old show, you're more Christian oriented now. You're more oriented toward the gospel and toward spiritual matters. But back then you were too, to some extent. And I think anybody who tries to do the right thing and is trying to promote Jesus Christ and promote the gospel, if you're doing that in any way, you get attacked. You just get attacked. That's just the way it goes.
Well, you're being somewhat kind to me because I invited it in.
Well, to some extent, perhaps, but
I didn't mean it as far as like cleaving to it and believing it. I was being egalitarian.
Yeah.
And I did not, by any way,
I think you saw the show. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you saw the show as more entertainment back then, as far as entertaining the people that were listening, as opposed to promoting a Christian viewpoint.
The Christian viewpoint is something that Harry and I always did not argue about, but did not see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that, that Harry forced me to do anything. That wasn't the case at all. But I realized that being churchy in a lot of ways got in the way of things. Now, however, having said that, when I did Beyond the Grassy Knoll for that year or so, I had a lot of people on, and at the same time, I also found the Informer. So we had this kind of dichotomy going on, where the Informer, which I thought was a gem, and I mean, that ended my journey, so to speak. But on the other hand, I was having people on for the full gamut of things, and then I realized what was happening, and that's why, since those days, I talked to, with Gordon and Randy about it and others, and it was like, all you do when you give air to occultists, New Agers, pagans, whatever, is that you just give them credence. And a few people warned me.
Yeah, I think that must be true,
Yeah. And I realized it. And when I found out at the end, that you're never one of them if you're not one of them. Mm-hmm. And so Red Ice and all those creatures, I was like, no, man, this is the end of the line for me. And that's when I just burned it down and just stayed away for a while because it just turned out to be an absolute horror, despite the fact that out of that came The Informer. But,
Right.
So,
when I first started listening to the show, I really liked it because one thing, you weren't selling anything.
Right.
There were no commercials.
That's always nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Not selling anything. If you want to listen, great. If you didn't, take a hike. But there was, it was to some extent from a Christian viewpoint, and it was a kind of a breath of fresh air for me. And then I began to realize that there were things on there that I really didn't like, but that's none of my business. If there were people that wanted to listen to, what was that guy, Hodge or the Hogue or whatever, the guy that did
John Hogue,
Nostradamus stuff. I mean that
was
I've seen him on the History Channel, and 5 minutes of him, and I need a root canal or something, just to get away from it. It was not something that interested me.
No, I try to get him away from that stuff, and we did to a certain extent when he came on quarterly, and that was the end of it. But I mean, everything is like Mavis and all this stuff, and he converts everything like these idiots do with the Bible code. I mean, they have this sliding what would you call it, cipher.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you talking about? And I one time, I think one of the last times I ever tuned in my insomnia to Coast to Coast, and he was on.
Yeah.
And I came in the middle of it, but I could hear his voice. And when I heard what he was doing, I'm like, oh God, I just shut it off. It's like, it's so old, and everything's tied into Mavis and Nostradamus. I mean, get out of here. But
and like we've seen here, I believe Nostradamus was, he was wearing a different colored jersey than you and I have on. He's on the other side, or was on the other side. Very occult. But very evil stuff as far as I'm concerned.
But I mean, it's funny because what we're talking about, it all goes and comes around again, and that is what you've been talking about is. I'm just laughing. Lady Viz is out there somewhere in the darkness. I can hear sounds. Excuse me. But what we're talking about is that with all information and everything, even what you're recounting through, in a capsulized form, like centuries in Europe. I mean, it's like a feeding frenzy for all the darkness that wants to rule the world.
Exactly.
And it never gives up because like we said, scumbags win because scumbags never sleep.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I don't have time tonight, but one thing I'm going to try to prepare a good presentation on the powers of darkness as they're involved in this whole idea of the European Union morphing into the final revival of the Roman Empire, and how the spiritual basis and get into some of the things I've been reading about. There's just really fascinating, interesting scholarly works from people that are gone into the hierarchies of the powers of darkness. I mean, you're not dealing just with Satan alone, and you're not dealing with any, just one group of evil entities. There's quite a hierarchy there, and they have different functions. And that was something that I hadn't really thought about very much, and now it's that the quote from the Apostle Paul about now we wrestle not against flesh and blood is starting to hit home to me a little more. It's starting to make more sense. I mean, I believed it to start with, but I didn't understand exactly how profound that statement was.
And neither did I. I mean, like I said, in '94, ironically, not at the time that I was in this individual's church, but like 6 years after, he would send me his books, and I'm talking about Bob Rosio, who was being published by I think the Huntington Press.
Well, he's a real scholar, interesting guy.
He really is. I mean, he's just a pleasure also, and he's got he began a Christian school, a Jesuit Christian Academy, which his son Todd has taken over. But Bob was always a big historian. It was interesting to talk to him. But after I left and he continued to send the books, I mean, when he sent the one about, what was it, about Hitler and something like Hitler and Satan or something like that, or the New Age or whatever, I don't know. And I read it in 94, and it still didn't dawn on me. And it took 7 years, 6 to 7 years, when I realized that, oh my goodness, the NWO and what it says in Revelation, I'm trying to figure a way to phrase this, but and what's broken down in Revelation is all one and the same.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, you know, dunce, when did you figure that out? I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But I mean, it doesn't come that easy to folks, because I separated them both, and then I realized, and the reason I bring up the Hitler book is that when he talked about Hitler being basically invested by a demonic spirit,
exactly.
I'm like, well, yeah, that fits, but I never put the whole thing together and going, but they all are. And that's the thing.
You know, one thing that surprised me was Anthony Sutton wrote just a couple of paragraphs about how you could not understand Hitler and the Nazis unless you understood the spiritual basis behind them.
You got it.
He said something to the effect that this was demonic, and that Hitler was demonic. I've been reading a book that was loaned to me by William Ramsey called Hitler the Black Magician. It's written by a man named Gerald Suster, who is a British writer. And a lot of it is about Aleister Crowley and Crowley's influence, and how Crowley apparently had some influence on Hitler. In fact, Crowley had some influence on a great many people, especially in Europe. And it's all about the spiritual basis for what Hitler was doing. Hitler was, swept up in the demonic. I mean, I believe he was demonically possessed. I mean, I think his body, his being was possessed. I mean, they talk about his speeches. I saw a man interviewed on History Channel. His name was George Mossy, and he was a German Jew who eventually escaped from Nazi Germany around the time of World War II. At any rate, he was a professor at the University of Michigan in history. He was talking about having gone to a Hitler rally. He said his parents would have skinned him alive if they'd have found out that he had gone out at night and gone to a Hitler rally, when Hitler was still, on his way up. At any rate, he said he could not explain the power that Hitler had over that crowd and over himself.
That's right.
And then, he kept going, I don't know how to, I can't explain it. Well, I can explain it. It's the power of darkness. It is a demonic power that the man had, and it enabled him to sway people, to persuade people to his viewpoint and to follow him.
If you were to have a lineup amongst the top echelon of the Nazi regime, you throw in all of them, all the suspects, Himmler and all them, you would look at a lineup and say, which one of these would you pick out to be the leader of it? Hitler wouldn't even get a look. Hitler wouldn't even get a look. And that's right. I mean, what you said is true. I mean, he was definitely invested. No doubt about it.
If you look at Hitler, he wasn't particularly good looking. He didn't, a lot of people said he was kind of a nondescript person when they first met him, in the early days before, he became powerful. That he was just one of those guys. He was every man. He was, Joe Schmo on the street. But when he began to speak, there was a power there that was, palpable, that people felt, that swayed people. They said that he had his eyes, transmitted like a hypnotic power. That when he looked at people, they were just transfixed on him. Well, and I can't explain that any other way than through the supernatural and the power of demonic possession.
You think about the giants, and I'm talking about individuals among which he walked. Mm-hmm. I mean, try to assassinate and just punch his face in.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is a backhand. Mm-hmm. But like you said, no one touched him. Mm-hmm. He went about as if he was radioactive. Mm-hmm. And there you go. Yeah, and this brings it back to when I got that book from Rosio in '94, and I sat there during one summer and I read it, and then it started to dawn on me. Oh man, I never put this both together, and I would have to say, as you well know, I'm not going to beat this to death today at this hour, and that is, I look at the whole Patriot movement, and they don't get it either.
No.
It's not got anything to do with your guns are bigger than my guns. This thing is spiritual, and a lot of the professed Christians, and there's 1,000 of them on these radio shows, and none of them get it. None of them get it, and I'm just amazed.
Well, it's a popular thing now. It has been, I guess, for an awful long time, long before our time, for people on the right who profess to be super patriots to also profess to be, born-again Christians, and they run off at the mouth about their Christian experience, on and on and on. I mean, you wrap yourself in the flag and you grab a Bible and thump it, And in reality, it's really a lot of horse manure, but, it looks good, to the rubes. They buy into it, the people that you're trying to influence to follow you for whatever reason, to gain power or money. Is generally the reason behind these folks.
Well, and it goes back to this, and there's no, and you can look at and I hate to, I'm not patronizing you by bringing you back to this too, but, it's a lot, as much as we know that Peikoff just absolutely hated religion, and I can understand why, from his point of view. But what got me especially was that it's the same as it is today, that the church aligns behind the government to a great extent because they go home and they forget their Bibles and they watch CNN and Fox and all this crap. And if CNN and Fox tell them that they're fair and balanced and all this stuff, they're believing it. Mm-hmm. And all they're doing, as you well know, and the Republicans are famous for this, is aligning that party with God.
Yeah.
For some strange reason.
Exactly. That's what I've been trying to say. I know I've said it before. Mussolini said that fascism was a merger of the corporation and the state. Well, I'll go one farther, and it's a merger of the corporation, the state, and religion. It has to have organized religion to really be effective. And in all of the fascist states of Europe, all three of the major fascist states of Europe, Germany, Italy, and Spain, they were all heavily supported by the Roman Catholic Church. In fact, the Roman Catholic Church put all three of them into power when you get to all the machinations behind the scene.
Well, I think history also records, though, that in Germany, the Protestants weren't too far behind either in supporting Hitler.
They weren't. They went along with it.
Yeah. And so now we have 501c3 churches, and, isn't it amazing how people laugh about, well, how can you call it a conspiracy? Well, how can it continue to play out time and time again the same way? Part of the conspiracy is embodied by the statement that history repeats itself.
Exactly.
Hello? So, I don't know, you tell me, but it seems like it works pretty well.
Yeah, all this super patriotism wrapped in like I say, wrapped in a flag and something on a Bible. The Nazis did the same thing. They used I know that I've read some statements before. I think I've read it on your show, coming from Hitler and from Goebbels. See, Goebbels was smart. He knew that they were going to need, the backing of the church, and he knew that the majority of Germans, the thing that even the people who were disgruntled with the way things are going, the distribution of wealth, etc., the labor unions, were not particularly fond of the big capitalists, etc. But the majority of people in Germany believed in the supernatural. The majority of people in Germany were either members of a church or at least believed in God. And that was one of the things why, that's the reason why communism would never be, famous, would never conquer the world, was because it has no belief in the supernatural, and in fact, encourages people not to believe in it and persecutes organized religion. And the Nazis picked up on that and were very successful in getting the churches behind them. And that's happening here. They're lining up. Think of a right-wing politician, mainstream right-wing politician, who doesn't try to curry the favor of religious organizations in this country. I can't think of a one.
Well, I mean, that's the old story. Like I said, what president isn't a Christian around election time?
Oh, yeah.
Here's something very interesting, which has happened apparently under the radar, but what is out there? Well, I mean, this would be a leading question, so I'll just get right to it. Okay. And that is, of the old guard of the Reagan days, and of course, Reagan was a Christian, and where that's right, and Buchanan and all that. Well, Newt Gingrich, right?
Yeah.
Converted to Catholicism. How many people know that?
Yeah.
Are you aware of this?
Yeah, I just found it out this week.
Okay, yeah.
I think his new, I don't know how many wives he's got or had, but I think his current wife,
Yeah, she's in the choir at some Catholic church.
Yeah, she's Catholic, so he became a Catholic.
And so
that's a real test of conscience there.
But what I'm laughing at, though, here is how in the world the Republicans, I've always thought that their use of GOP means God's own party.
Uh-huh. And
how are they going to dance around that fact? That's why I don't think that he's the real deal. Because they can't sell him if they find out that they align him with all the Protestants, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Bible-believing Protestants. Now he becomes...
Well, evangelicals, they're not going to like the idea of him being Catholic.
So what are they going to do with Newt sitting in the middle of the room? Mm-hmm. This is going to be interesting to see what happens.
They're really in a bind now at the top, of the two top candidates, because you've got a Mormon in Mitt Romney, and you've got
a moron,
Gingrich, who is obviously a guy who doesn't have particularly high moral standards when it comes to his sex life. I mean, he's supposedly publicly, been castigated for having sex with some woman in a car.
Well, he should have not been castigated, but castrated.
Yeah, we can only hope.
And I mean, he brings his wife out. It's like, honey, what's with the helmet hair?
Yeah.
I mean, lay off the hairspray, will you? It's bad for the environment.
Yeah, I don't know. You got Mitt Romney over there, and I don't want to start banging on the Mormons, but I believe Mormonism is a cult. I don't believe that it's Christianity. I believe it's a cult. They have a perfect right to believe that if they want, but
well, you'll have to answer to the Angel Maroney.
Yeah.
As in Boney.
Boney Maroney.
There you go.
Making love underneath that. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
I got an angel named Boney Maroney. Yeah, well, anyway.
only people in Utah are going to hate us.
Oh, gosh.
But
I'm thinking about that, and I'm going, well, that kind of puts the evangelical Protestants in a real bind there. Two groups that they don't have a whole lot in truck with either one of those.
Well, how is the CMP going to get behind this stuff? Not that I care about them, and I don't really think that they...
Oh, they'll find some way to jive it up, I'm sure, And
well, let's listen to Stan, because Stan will tell us the truth.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, the walking commercial, that's the best.
Yeah, he'll come up with some phony crap, I'm sure.
So, all right, I tell you what, we've got a couple of minutes left. We can't go any deeper into where we're going, if that's okay with you. I mean, we went pretty far.
We're kind of at a stopping point, because... Man, this is a complex subject. I mean, but I think it's important that, we look into it. I don't know how deep we can get into it, but it's important, that we kind of have at least a cursory understanding of it.
And I'm
going to go into, next time around, into the symbolism. There's so many symbols of the EU which are just directly related to the symbolism in Revelation. I mean, I've got several pictures of the symbol of the European Union, which is Europa riding, the bull. The legend of Europa, the young girl who is
astride the beast,
the bull, and drags her into the sea, rapes her, and all, and that's the woman riding the beast. I mean, if that isn't, that doesn't tell you something. And there's several other symbols of the EU which are just, directly out of Revelation.
Looking back at...
Tower of Babel is involved, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Looking ahead.
Yeah.
Not that it matters a whit to us, because we know that whoever's put in the Oval Office, that's the best salesman they can get for whatever agenda, part of the agenda they want to advance. And no matter how bad supposedly Obama's doing, blah, blah, blah. First of all, if they introduce and are talking about this, a third-party candidate, you got Obama. And you're going to get Obama no matter what. I mean,
it kind of looks that way, but, I'm not really sure. It kind of depends on what they want to do this time around. Do they want to rip us off some more and steal some more of our money?
Yeah.
Well, then we're going to get a Republican. If they want to get us into a war, well, stick with Obama.
Well, remember, I mean,
you always got to have a Democrat when you want to start or you want to increase a war. You want to make it widen it out. Make it larger.
Well, I mean, when you had the 29 crash, I believe you had Hoover.
Yeah, you did.
A Republican. And do we talk about what I thought was an interesting anecdote, if in fact it's true, and that is the bit about the handlers wanted FDR to run the banking holiday by everybody, and he was like, "No, I don't want to do that. Let Hoover do that." That's when presidents took office in March, not in January.
Right.
And he's like, nah, why don't we just let Hoover do it? And Hoover's like, whoa, I mean, what are they going to do to Hoover? Hoover's on his way out. It's like, no. So they told FDR, no, you're doing it and you're going to like it. So he comes out and sells the damn thing, and everybody attributes the New Deal and how that turned us around to Roosevelt. When this anecdote illustrates the fact that, no, they don't do anything. What they do is they get elected, they get a script, and they said, stick to it.
Yeah.
And if you don't stick to it, you get killed.
Yeah.
As he may have been in his last year, if he was.
There are some people that believe that Roosevelt had gone off the reservation a little more than they liked, and that he was poisoned.
Well,
but then again, I mean, he was so ill. Who knows? It's really kind of hard to say.
Well, if we believe Fletcher Prouty, and you can go to and just Google his account of we've talked about that, right? So it's like, Churchill's gang did it. Well, whatever. But the thing is,
that's what the Russians said, and the Russians said that to Roosevelt's son. And there was a problem in it. The Russians would not allow Eleanor Roosevelt to attend. I guess it was Stalin's funeral or some high dignitary. And he asked, well, why didn't you let my mother come over and attend this funeral? And they said, well, because you wouldn't let us come over there and examine Roosevelt's body. And we believe that
he was off.
Churchill and the gang did him in.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I wonder if Roosevelt didn't have the stomach to go ahead and allow us to drop or not drop or whatever, detonate 2 atom bombs in Japan. If he did not have the stomach for that, and that was part of the plan, just like Lincoln also didn't have the stomach to continue the war, well, guess what? You broke the deal. You got to go. Because and here's another thing of ancient lore, so to speak, but in the Faustian tradition, if you go back on a deal with Satan, guess what? So and that's from the original, I guess, Faustus legend by Marlowe, where they found Faustus's head. And this goes back to the exorcism, by the way. If you remember Linda Blair with the swivel head.
Yeah.
Well, after Faust reneged on the deal with the devil, they found him in his room with his neck broken, and actually the head turned completely around. Sometimes, in the old days when I first encountered that, like in '72, I laughed at it. I don't laugh at it anymore. You realize just how much was said in jest, and how much was given us, under the guise of, like, say, B movies. You know what I mean? And then you realize at the very base of it is something that's very real.
Well, it's down through history. There's been, different dramatic representations of people making a deal with the devil, and the most famous or popular is the Faustian legend. But I've even watched some contemporary television where they're showing this one thing where the guy was having all kinds of problems in a house, and believed the house was haunted, blah blah blah. People come in there to check it out, and after a while, they bring in this person who says, "I believe that this man is into Satanism." And that's the reason for these problems that they're having here. they start talking to the guy in an interview, and he just brings it out that, he had been involved in Satanism, and that he had performed rituals, and that he was gaining power. He wanted money, and he wanted women, and that's, they asked him, well, did you get it? Yeah, I got it, but I began to realize that, it was going to drag me down, and I wanted out of it, and blah, blah, blah. So, even on, kind of a small level there, apparently, there are a lot of people that have entertained thoughts of making deals with the devil, and apparently it's possible to do so. Not just in the realm of dramatic productions, which seem a little crazy or, over the top soap opera stuff, but I believe this actually happens in the everyday world from time to time.
Can you imagine what it would be like, excuse me, at a board meeting with these sons of Satan? I mean, can you imagine Rockefeller and the Rothschilds and these characters? I mean, can you imagine with whom they fellowship? I mean, seriously. I mean, it would probably scare the bejeebers out of all of us.
Well, Hitler used to go through, Rauschning, who was his friend and like a personal secretary, wrote about Hitler having these fits where he would literally fall down on the floor, like be foaming at the mouth, and they would wake him up and kind of shake him out of the freak out and offer him something to drink and get him to calm down, and he would say, he's here, and he was talking about this entity that he was in contact with. Apparently, it was either the entity that was in control of him or had influence over him. And he talked about how afraid he was. They said he would just be just totally overcome with fear. Well, you sup with the devil, you need a long-handled spoon, his wasn't long enough. And, these people that think they can fool around with these powers of darkness, it's only a temporary power or temporary meeting of your needs. And then once they're through with you, buddy, they kick you to the curb and they're gone.
Well, I had a conversation today with someone along the lines of this, and that is, we look at the mafia movies, and we watch the all of what takes place there, and of course somebody's thinks they're on the inside, and then something happens and they get popped by somebody on the inside, and everybody thinks they're on the inside, and they don't think they're going to get whacked by anyone else. And I mean, I'm just using it as a light example, but in the world of deceit upon which Satan sits, how many of his minions believe that they're on the inside? They're going to. I mean, obviously they believe they're going to have everlasting life too. Let's remember that.
Yeah.
But I have to laugh because, I mean, he's the ultimate liar as well. And some of these people who do the bidding wind up getting whacked by someone else, because the double cross is what he works with. I mean, it's the same old story. We all remember the Charlie Brown comic strip.
Oh yeah.
And how many times is Charlie going to try to place kick when Lucy's going to take the ball away?
Every year.
And yet I look at you look at the evil side, and they all believe they're on the inside. And yet, Satan, let's put it this way. Who's the greatest salesman in the world? Satan, without a doubt. I mean, he could sell you your own car to you.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. And these people line up for it, and they buy it, and they have a little temporal power and such. But some of them, at least in this life, wind up getting whacked.
Yeah.
The other ones think that there are, and of course I look at Rockefeller. I mean, my God, how long is he going to last? Yeah. And he thinks he's going to like the great beyond also, where, well, he is, but not where he's going to the dirt room. But I mean, for the most.
Have you ever in the course of your life sat down and maybe not intentionally, but at some point you realize you're talking to somebody who is strongly influenced by evil forces?
Funny you mention that. Sure. Yeah, I have. Absolutely.
I know in my experience, it was with a roommate. It was a woman that I knew. It was just, purely platonic relationship. But I knew that she was heavy into heavy metal music, and it didn't really bother me because she didn't play it around me. She'd play, with headphones on in a room or whatever. So it didn't bother me. I couldn't stand that type of music. But I started looking at the lyrics, on some of the CDs and the old, albums that she had. I began to realize, these people aren't kidding around. This is very satanic stuff, At first I just, kind of laughed it off as, kind of Halloween booga stuff. And she'd been a writer for a magazine in San Francisco, and her specialty was heavy metal, and she knew people like Ozzy Osbourne. She was friends with him and had, a lot of autographs and stuff and one day I sat down and talked to her about something, and in particular, it was during the time that my ex-wife and I had broken up, and I was, I got to be friends with her, and I was just kind of talking about, how disappointed I was in my relationship with women, especially at that point in my life, because it meant so much to me. She goes, well, the Creator made a mistake in the way that, and I'm thinking, what? The Creator made a mistake. How can he make a mistake? He's the Creator, And she started going on and on about how disgusting Christianity was and on and, and she knew that, I was trying to live a Christian life, and there was just like the hair on the back of my neck started standing up, and it's like I didn't really want to argue too much, and I just, I did make a couple of statements and just got out of the discussion.
Well, I'll give you an example on the other end of it. Without going into the whole 9 yards, the owner of the stations at which Harry and I first started doing it. Well, not first started doing the show, but we did the show on AM, right? Mm-hmm. We had that period there, and you can hear that in the archives. Well, the guy that came in and bought that is a millionaire, 1 million times over, and I mean, he's just a no good human being. All right, great that he's a millionaire, but in his presence, at the time that there was going to be a change at the station, and I might have become the general manager of it, I sat down, and I will tell you that I never was in the presence of someone who spoke to me but made me feel like I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
Like I didn't count for anything.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I looked at this guy, the other thing is that it's like the air was robbed of anything beneficial. Mm-hmm. It was almost like being in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And while he's breaking this stuff down to me, I'm saying to myself, there's no way I'm going to do this. There's no way I'm going to do this. I'm going to sit and listen to this, and I'm getting the hell out of here. I have never actually been in the presence of someone, and there was a number of meetings we had, where I just said to myself, he actually doesn't even see me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like I'm not here. I'm that inconsequential to him. I'm a worm, if even that. And I tell you, that's the other end of it. Mm. I mean, a millionaire loses money on the stations up here, down here, I should say, in East Pasco County. Doesn't matter because the numbers are just like without belief. But I sat there and I said,
no respect or regard for anyone other than themselves.
No, it's like there were 5 of us in there.
Total selfishness, total self-absorption.
But you get vibes from people. Like in the situation you were talking about, there were negative vibes. Mm. Here, there were like none.
There was nothing. Yeah.
No, there was tombstones in his eyes.
A void.
And I'm like, oh my God, let me get out of here. Well, needless to say, I mean, I sat through the whole thing, and then I talked to somebody else who's going to be in on this with me. I'm saying, look, all right, let's go someplace, and get something to eat or whatever. And I told him, I said, there's no way I'm going to do this. There's no way I'm going to do this. I said, so I'm going to send him a fax, and that'll be the end of it. And I said, you do what you want to do. And he tried to stay on a little bit longer, and he left as well. But, it's just that, it's just the presence of evil. It's like you can't even grab something good out of the air. Hmm. And I'll never forget that. So, so you have both extremes, but you can tell that there's just nothing living in that individual. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Except evil, so, whatever. And that's the characters that run this world. And people are just so reluctant to understand that.
And if you want to channel that into your life, the powers of darkness are more than happy to come in there because they need to use people. and they will use you and discard you whenever the time's right. And, you know, I think a lot of the suicides that we hear about day to day are often, you know, because of that influence. I mean, they can drive people into madness, into a sense of depression that is well beyond, you know, just the psychological. It's a spiritual void, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking back to over the last 30 years and stuff about a lot of individuals, not necessarily personalities or celebrities that people know, but situations that to this day still give me the creeps.
Yeah.
Because there was something going on there.
Yeah.
And in a way, I guess I feel like a rube that I didn't understand what was going on. But in a way, I'm also happy I was a rube because I didn't get near it. You know.
Yeah, that's something that when I finally realized what the situation was with this woman, I couldn't wait to get the heck out of there. You know, I didn't have a really, you know, the lease was in her name, so I could leave whenever I wanted to. And man, within, you know, a few days, I was moving out of that place because I began to realize that there was just something strange, you know, going on in that house that I always felt kind of uneasy, you know, and I believe that, you know, there were spiritual powers that, you know, were kind of circling in that place, you know, that were, I don't know, that's not the word I want, but that there were spiritual powers of darkness that influenced her and were there, and if they got a chance, they were going to do a job on me as well, you know, and it really, you know, I never said anything to her because I didn't want to confront her with that. I thought that would just probably be useless anyway. But it became pretty obvious that I didn't belong there. You know.
No, but that is the way of the world. Mm-hmm. And there's a duality here in the sense that when we talk about, you know, and people email me and they say, you know, you're right. I mean, we can't beat this thing. And most of them, I think, you know, Christians, we don't necessarily have to talk about that centrally, or that becomes a big issue in the emails. But they realize that if you get some people who can just get out of the whirlwind, I mean, if any percentage of people amongst the 300 million that are in the United States just stood back and said, "Are you really being served by this political process?" They'd say no. But they're so caught up in this thing, and that's the point, that they don't step out of the merry-go-round and go, you know what, this isn't making any sense. Oh, my God, if they did that, what would that mean? But the same situation happens with all of us now. And that is, if you think about the way things are run, and especially for Christians who should know better but apparently don't, then you got to realize that what we're dealing with is far beyond bad guys and good guys with guns. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, I don't think it's a stretch for me to say to you that we understand, especially with these people who are absolutely, you know, like I said, thank goodness there's only a small percentage of them that are hooked into this patriot movement, who think they're going to, like, you know, go on some field with, like, long rifles and shoot it out. Are you serious? And it's not the fact that it can't be defeated, and people criticize us for saying, well, you guys are fatalists because you just want to hurry up and go to heaven. That's not the point. It never was the point. I can see where
what, some of these people that think they can take a small weapon, you know, a small arms fire is going to do something. I can tell that they have never really witnessed, they've never been in the military or witnessed what the military can do and what kind of weaponry they have. And if there was an outright rebellion against the United States government, these people would be crushed. You know, I mean, and like I've talked about before, I know for a fact that they have weaponry that they have developed in black programs that can handle that kind of thing. You know, if some of these people had ever seen somebody fire a 50 cal machine gun, you know.
Well, that's, you know, it's funny you should mention
that'll
it.
Wake you up.
Yes. You know, I cannot believe you said that, because I saw that demonstration. Mm-hmm. And that's, I mean, I don't even think they're going to use bullet weaponry anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't have to.
But when I saw what you said you saw, 50 cal in a machine gun fashion, are you serious? That wouldn't leave sequoias standing.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it just rips. It's not just bullet goes into the wood and goes and penetrates. I mean you can just level a tree.
Let me just ask you something. Was that something that Freak Lemon sent us? Does that sound right?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. But
no, I saw the
I've
same
seen
thing
it in other capacities. But it's it's just I mean, when you see military weaponry used, it'll wake you up as to the power of what they can do in comparison to small arms fired by some wannabe militia group. I mean that's foolishness.
But
that's plain foolishness.
I have to admit, when I saw that demonstration, even if they're going to stay in the world of bullets, when I saw that, I'm like, forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like the nastiest handheld thing I've ever seen.
That's just one thing. That's just one weapon.
I know.
They come in rockets. I mean, on and on and on, and I mean tanks and flamethrowers, whatever they want to do, and it's like, are you serious? You think you can handle that? Yeah. I mean, people might be able. The one thing I would recommend that people have firearms to protect themselves against thugs who were, going to be out on the road trying to rip off anybody that
right,
they can.
And breaking and entries and stuff like that.
But stay indoors, stay out of sight. If possible, find a place where you can hide out. You don't want to be out on the street. You definitely don't want to be confronting the government. Or the police. That'd be idiocy. Anybody who believes that is, you're not dealing with a full day.
Well, I'll tell you, when that day comes, the police are going to probably be scrambling too to protect their own.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think we forget about too. I mean, you can talk about law enforcement being bad, and okay, fine, but when the big one hits, I mean, they're going to be taking care of their families as well, which means pretty much there's anarchy. And like Trudeau is, in fact, by the way, a shameless plug. Trudeau's coming on Saturday, folks, and anything goes. You can talk about anything.
Yeah.
The beginning at GCN, everything.
Yeah. I hope he has, and I think he will, knowing Trudeau. I hope he has like some practical, things for example, tell people what type of firearms to buy. I think one thing everybody should have is a 12-gauge shotgun. 12-gauge pump shotgun is very cheap to acquire. Ammo is not that expensive, and a 12-gauge at short range is very effective against somebody breaking into your house. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're firearms that you can buy that are cheap, that get the job done, and people need to know about it. A lot of people don't have much money to put into something like that. But hopefully he'll. And knowing him, I bet he will. He also believes, and I do too. He believes in big dogs. It's always a good idea to have a big dog or maybe more. That kind of thing.
Well, I tell you what, if you're trying to prevent a home invasion, all that stuff is actually very practical. Because you're going to find out right away how serious somebody is, in trying to get into where you are. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things.
If you're prepared ahead of time and know exactly what you need to do, the overwhelming odds are that you're going to win.
As Dionne Warwick saying, just walk on by. We'll go to the next house, no problem here. No trick-or-treating here.
Exactly.
As we come down to the end of the year, and this is probably the last recording we're going to do until we get to the other side of the big celebration. It stinks to have to think about this stuff, but on the other hand, if you got something in your living room, you got to get rid of it. You can't really say, okay, it's not there, and that's what we're dealing with. I mean,
exactly.
We would just like to be able to share with folks at least an understanding, at least to start a discussion about trying to do some things that are very practical and not all that expensive, just to keep yourself out of the crunch that will occur if systems break down.
Yeah.
And look, it may not happen next year. I don't really think it will happen in 2012. But sooner or later, it's going to happen, and you're going to have a mindset and a little bit of a preparation plan, and it doesn't take a lot to at least stay out of the first wave of frenzy if the supermarkets are closed and there's no food.
Exactly. Exactly.
Stuff like that. And I mean, as I've said down here in Florida, and although we've been spared for a long, long time, well, I mean, people down in Homestead won't think that way back in, what happened back in, like, what was that, 91?
Yeah. Well, if you live in Florida or the Texas Gulf Coast or anywhere on the American Gulf Coast, you really need to have emergency rations. You need to have food stored up because of hurricanes. You also need to have weapons to protect yourself and, some way to cook, and so forth and so on. Some way to clean water, to filter water. All kinds of, it's not impractical at all down there.
No.
I grew up in that. We always had equipment for that kind of thing.
The thing is that if you were in areas that were prone to catastrophic weather, and you can consider winter weather just the same, and that people have felt that, the thing is that just treat whatever might happen with a breakdown in civil obedience, if you will.
Right.
And just treat it the same way. It's like you don't have to be out in the streets getting crazy. You got whatever you need to just be quiet, stay low, and let the whole thing blow over.
Yeah.
And at least try to hold your breath for like maybe even a month.
The main thing is to stay out of sight. Keep your head down, and don't let them see you,
Well, I think I had a little mantra worked up for that. And that was, what was it? Let's see. Get small, stay warm, keep moving.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Especially for old farts like us, yeah. Getting warm and keep moving at least assures us that we're alive.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll call it a year with the conclusion of this audio, and we'll pick up probably after the 1st. And things are really interesting, without a doubt. And although we've seen a lot of information to the effect that Germany's rising up and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think your point is well taken. It's not really about Germany. It's about the Holy Roman Empire, and Germany is just being used as an instrument, just as it was used in the First and Second World Wars.
With the information that we get, and also with Liam, which I trust Liam to a great extent, because he sees it every day, and his point was, England can try to say we're getting out of the EU, but they can't. The trading is what he was saying was 85% involved with obviously EU members. There are treaties that still entwine them. I think a lot of this may have to do with theater and this, this fake up and down thing. But in the end, I don't think the EU is going to, in any way, shape, or form, disassemble. If anything, it's going to get stronger and a little bit wider.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're going to see a world in which there are no longer going to be sovereign nations, but they're going to be, I guess, basically economic zones, and they will be controlled, by a world government. We're not going to have the type of life that we have now. Just won't exist. It'll be more like feudalism, only it'll be in a modern setting. But it'll be like feudalism in the Middle Ages. That's what they want. That's their idea of what government should be. And it looks like they're well on their way to achieving that. And God help the third world. I think they're really, it's going to be tough for us, but it's really going to be hard on people in the third world because they're not going to be able to eat early on. I think the food crisis, which has already kind of hit them a couple of times in the last few years, where a lot of the very poor people in India and Africa and some of the nations of the third world it was very difficult for them to find enough food to survive. And I think that's going to hit even quicker there than it will with us. But it's going to happen here, too.
And all the information we get usually is pretty much predicated on what's going to happen to poor old us. But, your point's well taken. There are a lot of populations in Saharan Africa and in South America. And
I know when Paul Sandu's been on a couple of times, and I know it's close to his heart because that's his people, that's where he's from originally. And he talked about how Americans don't really understand just how poor people in the third world are and how bad they have it, Yeah. It's kind of like basically, boy, you're a bunch of spoiled brats, You don't know what you're talking about.
No, and
he's right.
No, and there's an attitude also, amongst a lot of, I hate to say it, but you know what? It actually is true. A lot of Western whites and such, and that is like, well, the hell, they deserve it. Well, they are going to definitely get wiped off the face of the map, quite literally. And so, I mean, and we're going to have a great incursion also in our lives. It'll be a very, shall we say, a come to Jesus meeting of some sorts.
Well, I'll tell you what, the New World Order, as far as, it's not just going to be warfare, but of the conventional or even nuclear type, but it's also going to be biological warfare. I think AIDS was just, they probably got other things that they're working on. And I mean, there's a ton of evidence. We could probably talk about it sometime. You've probably already done that on your show. In fact, I'm sure you have. Where I think it was Horowitz was the medical doctor who.
Oh, Len.
Leonard Horowitz.
Yeah.
Wrote. I can't remember the name of the book. Gordon and I discussed it one time. Gordon's real familiar with it, and I'd read passages from it, but. He talked about how AIDS was
it was cooked.
A designer.
Oh, it was cooked without a doubt.
Yeah, it was built in a lab, and it was gene specific, and the idea was to wipe out those who were not Northern European blood, and they pumped it up, and they went in and vaccinated all these people in Africa, against smallpox supposedly, and the end result was that they injected them with the AIDS virus.
Also. If any of you want to take a look into how science fiction is futuristic and also a predictor to a certain extent, Isaac Asimov wrote a short story in a collection of short stories called The Winnowing, which maybe I should read again. And I'm not saying Asimov was in favor of what he wrote about, but I think he also knew the plan.
I think he saw the future. I think he had a good idea of what was going to happen, whether he agreed with it or not.
Yeah, and that's why I think that a lot of what we saw in the second half of the 20th century with regard to supposed science fiction, as we called it then, I think we have a tendency to call it futuristic work now.
Yeah, it's predictive programming is what it is.
Well, I mean, they got to look into what was going on.
Right.
And they're telling you, I mean, and that goes back to even when I had Nelson on to talk about that short story that upon which was based the movie They Lived. And he got it. I mean, there's a person who actually wrote something and admitted, yes, I got it back then. That's amazing.
That was a great interview.
He's a good guy.
Best interviews you ever did. And it was so funny when he was talking about Roddy Piper and that guy, having the fight,
Yeah. He said they did that early on, didn't they?
Yeah.
They did the fight scene, the way they shoot a movie obviously isn't front to back, beginning to end. And didn't he say they did that thing in the beginning and they had to like walk around all limping and
he said
bruised?
They really beat the crap out of each other, I mean, those are two big guys, man. They start slamming into each other and somebody's going to get hurt bad.
But not only that, because I asked him about that too. I'm like, the fight scene took like 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was a long one.
I get it. Yeah, okay, we're having a fight. I get it. You don't have to do 15 minutes, all right?
Yeah, and the thing that got me is, I don't know, I'm over 6 feet and I weigh over 200 pounds, but, somebody who is around that same size, maybe even a little larger, hitting me a few times, and I'm not going to be standing up,
Well,
it's not going to be happening.
As we all know at this stage of our lives, no matter where we live them, when we see these Hollywood fights, it's like if you take one shot to the chin like that, you're down for the count. Get out of here.
Some guy hits you full and flush in the face with his fist, and he weighs 250, and he's got a lot of muscle. I mean, you're down.
You're asleep. That's it. It's over. Forget that stuff. Oh my God. All right. Well, listen. Thanks once again for coming on, and we'll pick it up on the other side. And at least for the holiday season, for whatever it means to all of us. Of course, I wish you one, that's at least safe and peaceful, and that you get a chance to get with your family again, as I think you're going to do, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
My son is going to be coming to visit me tomorrow, and he's going to be here for about 10, 12 days, and we're going to go down and visit my mom for the holidays, and I get to see my mom and my nephew, my sister, and many other of my relatives. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm pretty pumped up right now.
Excellent. And by the way, did you get any rain?
Oh man, we've been getting rain for like about 4 or 5 days now. Just steady, slow rain.
I think that's a good thing, isn't it, for you
Yeah,
guys out there?
it's a good thing, man. We were way like 15 inches below the normal. And I mean, this last summer was god awful. I mean, it was I'm starting to believe in global warming.
Oh,
it was like it, but it was all concentrated in the Austin area.
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to have some here too, but of course, what a silly thing to wish for in Florida.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. Then everything's looking well, and we'll pick it up on the other side because all the havoc will be there when we get back to it.
Okay. Yeah, man, it's been good talking to you, and God bless you, and Merry Christmas and all that good stuff.